happened to click on it to see, and I was like, oh, you guys are late.
How was the streaming? Did it feed okay?
Yeah, it was working good.
Yeah, good, good,
You
excellent.
could hear everything okay?
Oh, yeah. Yep. More than I wanted.
Give me a call, Pete. Give me a call.
But yeah, it was working good.
Well, I had my laptop open several times. No.
So basically, we go month to month, it's a better deal than what we had before.
Howie, make it the S.
Run out.
What's that?
Make it the S tonight.
Well, she's
Nobody else coming?
She said she thought Matt probably would be here, but I was Matt just thought everybody ought to be here.
In 1990.
If not, I just want to move it. I'm still on
Yeah, I should be all set.
resolutions are put on.
Still on the counter, but that's
Thing,
fine.
so just be prepared.
Oh, be prepared, it's not required to place any items that are just.
Because
Not counting sides, it's just a town.
she did not, there was no request made.
Yeah,
It
that's
wasn't
what
formal
I'm
request. I was gonna say what's on the email, but
Okay.
it didn't, wasn't
She
formed.
actually, I guess, brought them down to. You're older than you know, then she went to the office and they went up and all.
Yeah.
And so this is going on for multiple.
But
But in the end, the resolution, even if we
Did
were
you
to
get
have
that?
the town attorney said no, because they're not correct.
Yeah. And, well, if, I'm sure there'll be some that she'll want to discuss, she want to make a. You gotta only play with one.
I give you Tuesday.
Oh, yeah,
Still get direction from the. And then again, according to the contract.
This was lots of stuff I don't know what's in my head.
Hello?
How's it going?
I don't read it.
Not bad.
It's like I should try to talk to
Still busy. Not as busy as I was, but still busy.
Are you doing any work at all at the?
Well, I decided.
Not now, no.
Get completely out of there?
Yeah, they won't, they used to let you come back and double dip, they won't do that anymore, you gotta go.
Me too.
Seriously, that's
I think it's for 6 months.
Yeah.
And
And then one time, we changed that, watch them double dip it. You know, much retirement.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Regular pay too?
Oh, yeah. When I first started doing it, like I said, I still do some part-time stuff at,
I'm retired 20 years.
plus a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I guess it's.
You know, there's like, she's out of water. And like I
You
said,
started the other one yet, or?
no, it's not. I
I
called him up the other day. Tuesday to Wednesday, the very first. January. I'm scheduled to be there at 8 o'clock. I asked her, came in a little bit late. It doesn't look good.
Right.
Get sworn in and run right out the door. I said, no, you know, I said, I'll be there by 10, so I'll make sure. He said that.
Mr. Lux, how are you?
Good.
I haven't seen you for a little bit.
We'll see.
We did a grand opening the other day.
Huh? I thought it was went really well.
Yeah, so nice ceremony, huh?
He has finished.
Hang around too.
Well, I got. Maybe let us know, we said. I didn't know, just help you out. Yeah, so they're gonna come see anyway, so I want to buy those 2 lots across the street.
Wow. I see, you know, it's funny, you laugh about something, I see a couple of ladders up there at Dwight's.
Oh my goodness, it's a husband
Yeah.
and wife team.
It's done.
I don't blame you, you've been back.
Well, it's in there for a while.
I'll get kicked if she does.
Got the front step tore off, that's been all done.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with
And
it.
they put some new, they put some diamonds in there. And the facade up above the porch, I need real work, there's a big hole in it. But I didn't see anything on it.
Last I knew, why Dyer bought that.
Not right, I think he still owns it.
Yeah, and I think he's
He's trying to, he's doing it himself, so
What's he do, come home? I thought he was before, maybe he comes back.
maybe, I don't know, but
I thought he was moving slower. I could be wrong.
not that, has enough money, he's building with money, and put it in his house.
That's the only problem with that stuff like that. You gotta, my neighbor there, they had a house they owned in Connecticut.
you bring your last year's book?
And they bought the whole duplex, so they got a house on the street, it was just junk.
I unfortunately will not.
$7,000. They put probably 45 into it, but they had enough money because you buy, you sell a place like that on Connecticut. That's the only way to test it.
If it's between Happy Christmas and the Grinch, then I may have to consider at this point, I don't think
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you hear anything from Caleb or?
Oh, Jerry, Matt said he might not make
There he is. We're just talking about you. Mostly good, mostly good. As always, Caleb.
Don't talk to my wife.
That's just the person I should be talking to then.
At like the time when like the kids are bouncing off the walls. Kitchen pick- She loves me.
Not without trials. Ones are.
Yeah, that's the way it goes, right?
That's right.
We haven't got to that point yet.
All right, we'll wait just a couple more minutes, if folks don't mind, in case we're waiting for Mr. Bolster, if he can show up.
Yeah, we don't expect him for a while if he is able to.
Okay, I'll give him a couple minutes, in case.
Difficult when 3 people are out here all the same day.
Trash. Thank you all for showing up. Welcome to the Pittsfield Town Council, Tuesday, December 4th, 2018. I'd like to start the meeting. Invite you all to please stand and recite this pledge of allegiance on the national anthem.
Sing.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We'll sing next time. I'd like to just take a quick minute, reflect upon President George H.W. Bush passed away November 30th. A great leader in the modern time, and leader that everyone in any position can learn from. He had civility, respect, and kindness unknown in modern day presidents and politicians. So he's going to be greatly missed by not only the United States but the world. So I'd like to take a moment of silence, please. All right, thank you very much. Before we get into the meeting, I'd like to remind everybody, keep the side conversations and the cell phones to a minimum, please. We have a bit of a meeting to get through tonight. Let's be as expeditious, efficient, and civil as possible. So with that, I'll look for a motion on the adoption of minutes.
Move we adopt the motion of the minutes of the meeting held November 20th, 2018 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments, councilors? Hearing none, since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of adopting the minutes of the regular meeting held on November 20th, 2018, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against nay. Ayes have it. The minutes pass. We'll move on to number 3, presentations, congratulations, and introductions. Catherine, please.
Yes, very good. A number of items this evening under presentations, congratulations, and introductions for community and economic development activities and events. The first item we'll report on is that Innovative Specialty LLC's grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony, also called Nitro Trailers, was on Friday, November 30th. We had a very nice luncheon, lots of great conversation, met many of the people involved in Chad Downs businesses, had a very nice agenda put together by his marketing coordinator, Nick, who is full of excitement, as well as the other employees. We were joined by the deputy mayor, as well as Councilor Nichols, Howard, and Heather. So we had a very nice time, and they will be hiring more employees. So lots of good news coming out of Innovative Specialties. Next item is Small Business Saturday, and this event took place on November 24th. The Heart of Pittsfield has made a very nice pamphlet after contacting businesses and have a whole variety of items that the businesses are offering, which will be available all during the year. So that was a very nice activity. We are putting that out through Facebook as well as on the town's website and working with the Heart of Pittsfield on their pamphlet because it's an interesting little program in which some of the formatting moves around, so we're helping them with that. Next item is the Christmas tree lighting that is scheduled for Wednesday, December 5th, so that's tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. in Hawthorne Park, and there will be all kinds of activities, including Santa. And the lights will be turned on by our wonderful former Morning Sentinel editor, Ann McGowan, who has been on the library committees for many years and helped to raise significant funding, so that will be exciting. And then the free Christmas movie, hosted by Warsaw Middle School Jobs for Maine's Graduates Grant, the JMG, is scheduled for Saturday, December 8th. So that's the free movie. Won't be one that's picked out of the public sector. It's one that actually is paid for and is a very nice movie. That'll take place at 2 p.m. at the community theater, and the students from the JMG program will be at the theater to help out. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Catherine. We'll move on to number 4, public hearings and old business. There are none. Number 5, reports, council committees, finance committee.
Yeah, Finance Committee met last Tuesday. We spent about 4 hours here or more reviewing the Thank you. Reviewing the capital budget and the budget that had already been additionals, right? Some recommendations were made, I guess. There was an email sent out. Catherine sent it out middle of the week, I guess. That's all I had.
All right, thank you, Bob. Ordinance committee?
No report this evening.
Thank you. Recycling committee?
No report this evening.
Thank you very much. Move on to the board and committee updates by town councilors. Heather, you have an update for the communication?
We have not had a meeting. I anticipate we'll probably have a meeting in January.
Okay. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the bicentennial committee. Doc, anything you'd like to share?
As Catherine mentioned, the kickoff for the bicentennial is tomorrow evening. with the Christmas tree lighting, and I think the weather will be appropriate. So enjoy. Hot chocolate and cookies will be served. And Santa is arriving by sleigh, I hear. So, or wagon of some sort. Wagon. Thanks. If anybody hasn't noticed, there are banners hung around town for the bicentennial. Those are a gift from Almies, and I think they look great. And you'll see more of those around town as we thaw out the fingers of the Public Works folks and get them hung.
That would be great.
Okay. The next meeting of the Bicentennial Committee is next Wednesday, the 12th, at 6 p.m. In the library. And just a reminder that because the council meeting in January is been moved from New Year's Day to the 2nd of January. We've moved the bicentennial meeting in January to the 9th at 6 p.m. I think that's about all the updates right now. The next event after the Christmas tree lighting that we have scheduled as part of the bicentennial year will be the Winterfest, I think. And you'll see posters for that around town as we move forward. It's going to be in February. I'm not sure which weekend. Is it? I think it's the second or third weekend in February. But we'll get a final date for that and advise. Anything else to add, Jan?
No, I guess regarding tomorrow night, have a warm cup of coffee. And then we have a special surprise tomorrow evening that we're going to start with. Some of you may have heard some rumors around. Not only do they have to thaw out their fingers, but they have to thaw out their whole bodies because some of the town crew really did a nice job on last Wednesday. And some of you may have heard the rumors already. We have some exciting pictures I will not share at this point. But we're going to try to use that as a kickoff, and there will be something on display starting on Thursday or Friday at the library for people to kind of guess what it's all about. The hospital is making a contribution this year along with a lot of other places in town, so it's turning out to be an interesting event. In fact, Santa called me about 20 minutes of 6 just to make sure that this thing was still scheduled for tomorrow. That's
Long distance.
Long distance.
Did he call you on the antique phone at the library?
No, he didn't. No, he did not.
Did you call flat?
He called collect. That was that was the other thing.
There's another item for the budget.
I'll make a few comments later on in the meeting. And I just want to go back, and I could save this to the end too, Mike, but I want to add a comment about George H.W. Bush for just a second. I got to know his wife and some of the family members extremely well when I was the Associate Commissioner of Education in Maine, because Barbara did a lot of things with libraries and books for a lot of kids across the state of Maine. And there are a lot of programs that are existed now because of some of her efforts, and they will be really missed. Their community service was, in some respects, above and beyond the call of duty. So.
Thank you, Jim. Anything else, Doc?
No.
All right, thank you. We'll move right on to town manager's report. Catherine, please.
Yes, very good. A short town manager's report this evening. We'll hit upon number 1, Pittsfield Winter Sports Recreation Program. All winter sports are in full scale with travel teams and all of the games well underway. Please go to the Pittsfield Recreation Facebook page for updates. Number 2, Pittsfield Community Theater movie lineup. This will be published in the town manager's report. November 30th to December 6th is Johnny English Strikes Again. December 3rd through 13th is Bohemian Rhapsody. December 8th is the free Christmas movie, which is The Polar Express. December 14th through 20th is The Grinch. How many Grinch movies can they have? Evidently quite a few. December 21st through 27th is Instant Family. Starting January 1st, 2019, Wednesday night plays at 10 a.m. will no longer be held. Special events coming up, fundraiser in January, which will be a chili corn chowder, working on the date. February 9th will be a fundraiser for a Valentine's dance. The theater is always looking for new members. The group meets the last Wednesday of every month, with the exception of holiday months, at the Municipal Building Council Chambers at 6 p.m. An individual to be on the theater committee needs to be a town resident, like the theater, and want it to stay up and running. Please email pittsfieldtheater@myfair.net if anyone is interested in being on the theater committee. And people who are not on the theater committee are welcome to come. They have a whole array of people that also attend the meetings. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Catherine. We'll move on to number 6, new business. If you would, please.
I will. Under new business, we have ordinance 18-8 to be set to public hearing December 18th, 2018. An ordinance to authorize the transfer of unencumbered appropriation balances to various accounts. This will be from the Economic and Community Development Department, $29,000, from Buildings and Grounds, $6,000, from the transfer station, $27,000, from Recreation, $8,000, to Police, $19,000, to Streetlights, $2,000, to Public Works, $45,000, to Cemetery, $4,000.
I'll look for a motion from council.
Move we set ordinance 18-8 public hearing on 12/18/18.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments? All right, very well. Hearing none, I hear. Since we're ready to vote on ordinance 18-8, all those in favor of setting a public hearing on 12/18/2018, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Ayes have it. Ordinance 18-8 will be set to public hearing on 12/18/2018.
Resolution 18-110, resolved that the town council authorize the town manager and deputy treasurer to expend and transfer up to $5,000 from the economic development account G4-110-02 for purchases for the bicentennial project, being the second installment of funding.
I'll look for a motion from council, please.
Move we adopt resolution 18-110.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments from anyone in the audience, please? All right, thank you very much. Council, any questions, comments on this? Very well. Hearing none, I sense ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 18-110, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 18-110 passes.
Resolution 18-111, resolved that the town council waive the bid policy and accept the proposal of R.H.R. Smith & Company CPA of Buxton in the amount of $9,900 for the municipal water enterprise and sewer enterprise audits, and $2,500 for a single audit for grants if required for the audit year of 2018, and approve the firm as the external auditor for the town's 2018 audit.
I'll look for a motion from council, please.
Move to adopt resolution 18-111.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from anyone in the audience on resolution 18-111? Very well, thank you. Councilors, any questions or comments?
Catherine, this is the same company we use every year? Same people
Yes,
we use
this
every year?
is the same company. There are very few auditing firms that have the expertise that are large enough to be able to audit a town of our complexity. There are a number of other auditors, maybe 3 others in the state. There's a variety of small auditing firms that would not be eligible. They have agreed to keep the same price, which they have kept for a number of years. We previously were with another company, which was great, but it was highly expensive. I do not believe we will find a more qualified and a least costly firm. They do send different people each year, so you never know what they're going to focus on, which is good.
Heather?
Catherine, the 2,500 for a single audit, do most grants require an audit of some kind in regards to whatever the project is, or?
Yeah, the single audit is a requirement of the federal government under the GASB for towns that, or entities, that would receive now up from $250,000 to $750,000. So by the way we're spending our federal monies, we likely will not be required to have a single audit this year. It's a special type of audit in which they go through everything. We just bring down everything. And now they can go out back and get into the files and actually work on items. And so they have tests that they go through. So it would be all of the monies that come from the federal government.
So they're going through our records and just looking at the federal monies? They're not looking
For
at
the
everything
single
else?
audit, the rest of the audit is on
Right.
everything else.
So
And they do pick up the grants and the bonds as part of the regular audit too. But there are special tests that they go through. They look at, for example, the Davis-Bacon Act for the payments of the contractors. They look at the bidding process. They look at quite a bit. It's very intensive.
And you don't anticipate us needing that this year because of the way?
We'll be under the $750,000. When it was the $250,000, we have one every year.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, anything else, council? Very well, hearing none, I sense we're ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 18-111, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, resolution 18-111 passes.
Resolution 18-112, resolved that the town council authorize the town manager and deputy treasurer to invest surplus cash not required for the town's checking account needs at Androscoggin Bank in short-term certificates of deposit with Androscoggin Bank as funds are available during the year and to execute all required paperwork.
I'll look for a motion from the council, please.
Will we adopt resolution 18-112?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anyone in the audience wish to comment or question? Resolution 18-112. Very well, thank you, councilors. Any questions or comments?
Is this for 2019 going forward as far as investing, or is it just for this year? Is this a yearly thing that has to be done?
Once we have the approval, it would be just during the year, so it can go on as long as we're with Androscoggin Bank.
Is it a revolving fund or that we invested in?
Yeah, what I've got an explanation. This is something new that's being authored by Androscoggin Bank. So when we put out the request for proposals for the checking accounts, the banks bid the interest rate and they bid what your costs are based upon the amount of money that you have for your cash flow. So when they make the bid, they're figuring in using all the cash and keeping it in the checking account or going to a, like we have a sweep account that's backed up fully by the FDIC. So what Androscoggin Bank is offering is something new and not offered by other banks. Because of their relationship with the Portland Trust Company, they're indicating that rather than go with that interest rate which they bid, which they actually have increased a couple of 0.2% recently, they're indicating that they can offer through the Portland Trust Company short-term investments of 1, 2, and 3 months in which, let's say all the cash comes in at the end of October because the cash, the tax bills are due then. So all of a sudden we get a lot of cash. We have a lot of expenses, but we have a lot of cash. So rather being in the checking account at that, what is now 0.95%, it can go in at a higher rate. And what they're quoting are rates that are, if we invest some of the monies for a month, the rates on November 29th, and as I understand it, they've gone up a tiny bit since then. Instead of getting that 0.95, based upon we're going to have extra cash that's not needed until X bills come in December and January, we can get an interest rate for 1 month on the amount of money we put into the CD of 1.58. And if there's money that would be available For 3 months, it's 1.7. Now, we have to be very careful on this because there are penalties if you don't calculate out when the bills are going to come in. But rather than be at the 0.95, which is the highest around, so we've got a wonderful deal, they're offering this special arrangement. And the minimum total amount would be $250,000. So we have to figure out, how to do this, and we're working on the cash flow now. But once we get through about June, we have very little cash. So this is something that would happen after the taxes are due, that come in, and would work well probably until June of each year.
Are there any other times of the year when you have significant surplus?
No.
Except after?
Because the tax money, which is our major source of revenue, comes in pretty much September, October, and so then you pay your bills, and you do have a lot of end of the year bills to pay. And then the cash starts being eaten down, and then it keeps getting lower and lower until we get to the summer where it's very low, and then the tax bills go out as soon as they can, based upon the assessor schedule and all the work that needs to be done, and then we start having more money.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, councilors? Excuse me. Very well. Hearing none, I sense we're ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 18-112, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 18-112 passes.
Resolution 18-113, resolve that the town council appoint Connie LaGrosse to the theater committee to fill an unexpired term through 12/31/2020.
I'll look for a motion from council, please.
Move we adopt resolution 18-113.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Very well, thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Have somebody volunteer. Can't get enough volunteers.
That's true.
She's a nice lady too.
Very talented and committed.
Good. Sounds like a fine choice.
Yeah, she'll be a good asset to the theater committee.
Yeah, she's got a lot of spunk.
Yeah, a lot of nice ideas, and
Yep.
we are working on a theater group, she and I, so.
Cool. That's
Even,
awesome.
for plays and that
Yes,
such? Really?
exactly, yeah, that's in the works.
Is my big break coming, Rob?
You're getting discovered, Michael.
Anything else, councilors? Very well. Here now, I sense ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 18-113, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 18-113 passes.
Resolution 18-114, resolve that the town council accept the proposal of Charter Communications Operating LLC in the amount of $84.99 per month and the one-time installation charge of $99 for high-speed internet service, and authorize the town manager or assistant to the town manager to execute the service agreement.
I'll look for a motion from the council, please.
Move we adopt resolution 18-114.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Very well, thank you. Councilors, any questions or comments?
This is just to update the internet so the streaming will work better and all that.
So that it will help, yes. Actually, our current contract with all the different companies there, Charter, Time Warner, Spectrum, all of the same entity, had expired this year. This is actually a better arrangement with a higher bandwidth, which will help with streaming down here. We are set up to go month to month. High-speed internet is not part of our current cable agreement, and remember we have a cable agreement dated back to 1994, and so at that time the high-speed internet did not exist and is not part of the free services provided through that. We do have free cable hookup for multiple buildings and the school buildings, and the contract being month to month. If we do terminate, we're just responsible for the 30 days notice with the 30 days payment, and that was checked out by the town attorney.
So this is $84.99 total, not in addition to what we're paying now.
Correct.
What is that difference for what we're paying now?
paying $99, which was the best deal that we could get at the time.
So we're gonna go from what we have now at $99 a month, and we're gonna get a high speed for $84.99 a month?
We're going from $99 a month to a better program. The programs evolve over time. We have called them the company numerous times, and I will say that Michael spent a great deal of time on that, but finally got them to a very good offer.
The only time I ever got a better rate is when I called to cancel. And they found out they didn't need all that money.
Catherine, is this
Thank you.
a fixed rate? This $84.99, is that gonna be a fixed rate or?
It's a fixed rate until they change the rate cost, because we're going month to month. And if it becomes unreasonable, we'll just call around to the other companies.
So if we approve this, when would this take effect? When would they have this done for us? Do we know?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. Thank you. Just in time for my last meeting.
Be nice and clear.
As I wave going out the door. All right, anything else, councilors? All right, hearing none, since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of resolution 18-114, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 18-114 passes.
Resolution 18-115, resolved that the town council approve a renewal application for a special amusement permit for the Sebastopol Valley Lodge at the Elks at 140 Middle Street, Pittsfield, Maine.
I'll look for a motion from the council, please.
Move we adopt resolution 18-115.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on resolution 18-115? Thank you very much, councilors. Any questions or comments? Very well. Hearing none, I sense we're ready to vote. All those in favor of resolution 18-115, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 18-115 passes.
Resolution 18-116, resolved that the town council move the regularly scheduled town council meeting of Tuesday, January 1st, 2019 to Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019 due to the holiday.
I'll look for a motion from the council, please.
Move to adopt resolution 18-116.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Thank you very much, councilors.
Housekeeping.
Anyone want to be here New Year's Day?
The only comment I have, Mr. Mayor, is I'll be doing starting a new job, and I talked to my supervisor down there today, and I told him, I said, it's not nice to get sworn in then run right out the door. So I'm going to try, he's going to let me come in a couple hours late, but I may have to leave a little bit early depending on what the agenda looks like, but I just wanted to give you plenty of notice.
All right, very well. Anything else, council? Very well. Hearing none, since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of resolution 18-116, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 18-116 passes. With that, we'll move on to number 7, discussion items.
Yes,
Please.
discussion items. Only the financial reports, and I had noted that it would be highly unlikely that we would be able to reconcile these based upon the fact that the month had not even closed at the time that I wrote up the agenda item. I still have items outstanding from a number of the departments to do all the postings. However, I will note that the revenue budget does equal out with its control accounts. The expenditure budget does not, so there's going to have to be some work done on that. And this is the time of year we need to watch all of the expenditures very carefully. So I'll be working on that along with the office staff. Excise tax collections comparison, that reconciliation was completed. For this period, we are $32,811.21 ahead of 2017 collections, so that's very good, being through 91.7% of the period. For the state revenue sharing comparison report, for this period, we are $28,159.88 ahead of the 2017 collections. So the remainder of the financial reports will be worked on, As we know, the financial reports are usually, well, they're on the second agenda of the month, but since we are getting near the end of the fiscal year, we are trying to move them up to at least complete several of them as you're in your budget sessions. Thank you.
All set?
I am, thank you.
That was very, very quick.
Yes, it is.
You caught me off guard. Thank you very much. We'll move on to number 8, reports. Anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to discuss or bring up, or questions, comments? Yes, we'll start right there in the back with the handsome young man in the corner.
I do wish the town would sand the sidewalks when they're plowing them. Particularly over here by Dr. Reed's, up on Somerset Avenue by, as you head into the plaza up there, because it gets very slippery. And I don't feel like going on my tushy. I get down like, and I open on roller skates. And I don't get up as easy as I used to. Some 40 odd years ago, Mike. Please, sand, salt, please. I understand Honeywell Avenue is just about the same way. And you've got a young gentleman there that comes to the library at the other lift station. He's going in for surgery Thursday. He'll be limping around on crutches, I suspect, for a while. And he says that Honeywell Avenue is very much like a bottle. So please, sand and salt. Thank you, Mike.
All right, very well done, anytime. Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir, please.
I'd like to make just a general comment. My name is Michael Blank. I've been here about 8 years as a resident. And this year, I've attended maybe 6 council meetings. And the first one of those was the first one of my life. I've been an active volunteer in the communities I've lived with. Parent councils and my kids' sports, coaching, Boy Scouts, things of that nature. Never occurred to me, never had any interest in town government. But I have the time being retired, and so I've been here for 6 meetings. And I think I was thinking on the way over here, I can represent a significant segment of the community, any community. People who have so many interests, they don't give you guys a second thought. I never did. But having seen you at work half a dozen times, thank you. And the people like you who do this, meeting after meeting. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. You sure you don't want a couple more minutes or kind of
Screwed up my speech.
Jan, you can wing it. You're very good at that. Anyone else? Jan,
I want to throw out a question or two, because I think when we started to work on the bicentennial work, it now goes back almost 2 years. I think, there have been some underlying currents, there have been some discussions, and I think one of the conclusions that we've come to, maybe, is that, and having traveled around to different small communities, especially in the state of Maine, opportunities like the bicentennial and so forth are great economic development tools and generators, because it does bring a segment of the population into an area that may not be aware of that in the past. When we started with the contests, and we have the t-shirts or the sweatshirts that says Pittsfield, a good place to call home, that initial saying was mine. But when it initially came out, it was Pittsfield, a great place to call home. And somebody didn't like the word great, so we moved it to good. But I guess my question is, using the next year, what is a good community, and what needs to happen to make a community great. And no offense, but I think it's more than just having low taxes or those kinds of things. I think it's being able to provide some opportunities for, and we've had some things. We've had the business come in with the trailer and some other things happen. But what needs to happen to make the community great? Now, I think it's going to be very interesting when we open the time capsule, if we have enough blowtorches or saws, because that was done 50 years ago. And it's going to be interesting to see what kinds of things people put in back then. But we had a little chat, I think we had a little chat about this today, in terms of what kinds of things do we want to put in there now for people to open up 50 years from now. And while we've talked about Pittsfield then and now, I think we really need to think a little bit different, especially as we get in through the year. Think about Pittsfield then and now, but more importantly, think about Pittsfield in the future. And what kinds of things, what kinds of decisions do you guys make? No offense, Heather. What kinds of decisions does the council make? What kinds of decisions does the planning board make, which I'm on, to encourage people to make this a great community 50 years from now? Now, most of us, with the exception of probably one person in this room, will not be around 50 years to see that open. I'm talking about you, Howie. But
Still
we
want to
wanna-
council.
Didn't I say we need to maintain some civility?
Yeah, I know. But we need to, it'll be interesting to see what kinds of things, because what we put in there now, I think will really determine what we want this community to look like in the future. Nobody 50 years from now, guarantee it, will remember our names. But they will remember some of the decisions that were made. And I hope as we go through this year, we can think about some of those decisions and the importance of those, because it's going to be our children, our grandchildren, and my God, our great-grandchildren that are going to inherit this town and other places in the state of Maine as well, but for here. And I think we can work on that now. We could actually do that if we think about it. I would encourage all of you to show up tomorrow night. I know it's going to be cold. There will be hot chocolate. The hospital is sponsoring, is going to have some cookies out there and so forth. We're going to have one of the TV stations is going to be down here also. What a golden opportunity to maybe attract somebody's attention on a channel who lives who wants to live in Millinocket these days, but sees this community and the types of things that are going on down here to attract folks to come here.
Good thing my wife's not here, she's in Millinocket.
She lived there though, she was down here.
Yeah,
She's not there anymore, that's
yeah,
right.
well.
All right, all set, Jan?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience? Yes, sir, please.
I have a request as a resident of School Street. So last year with the plowing, when they come to the end of the road going onto Somerset, turning right, they're leaving quite a bank there. And last year it got almost impassable with the school buses. And they were headed there again. It's being left wide. Whoever's plowing the end is taking a wide sweep at the end when you're turning right onto Somerset. And just maybe just wing that back a little bit and keep it winged back. So it gets pretty bad with the school buses. You could almost not turn up the road when the school buses were leaving the school last year.
All right, thank you. You two guys must know Steve's here tonight, huh?
Oh, whatever. But anyway, to address that, that's about as tight as to the curb as you can get there right now. coming
They
out.
used to do it quite well, but for whatever reason, it
Well,
turned
you have
last
to go
year
up on
was
the
different.
sidewalk to do it, if you wanna do that. You'll have to wing up on the sidewalk. Because you're coming right off Lawn Edge. I understand what you're talking about. You're coming off Lawn Edge, and then trying to make that hard radius on that lead-in on that sidewalk. That's a radius with a lead-in off the corner. So you try to follow the curve, but I understand you want all you can get.
Well, well, it's just that last year seemed to turn the tide. It used to be that it was fine, but last year
they had a
something
big
was different
wing,
last
big-
year, and then it's different.
Last year they were running a big wing and a big truck.
And
That
it's
road
different
is
this
plowed
year.
with a small truck now, and she can run a
Yeah,
tight,
I saw
a
that.
tight radius, yeah. I'll see what I can do with it. We might have to, when we go through with the sidewalk plow, which the sidewalk plow is keeping the sidewalks clearer than they have been in the past. It's doing a good job.
I've heard nothing but good about it.
Correct. Yeah, and I don't care what I got in front of me, I'll be able to get through it. Now, to address sanding and salting on the sidewalk, that's something we've never really done. Only on a rare case where we have gone out and spot or sanded in an extreme measure by hand. We've never been set up with a sidewalk sander. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the resources to sand it by hand. So if that's something we're gonna do in the future, then we need to address that. But right now, I have no plans to change how we operate. I don't, yeah, I mean, you can only resource so much. I'm already taxing what I got. Yeah, so, yeah.
All right, thanks, Steve. Anyone else in the audience have anything they'd like to speak about? All right, thank you all very
Can I
much.
talk
Yes,
about the Pittsville Players that's coming?
certainly, please do.
Okay. I didn't know if this was the right time to do that or not, because I'm kind of excited about
It's
it.
a perfect time.
Okay. I've been dealing, well, Connie and I have been getting together quite frequently, and we had a meeting, I want to say in November, we had a group come together of different people. So we have set up for January to do auditions for a play. I can't, for the life of me, I gave my play to, book to Peg, so I can't remember the name. But we're doing auditions in January and hoping to have the play up and going for the spring or summer. I have more on that as the time comes.
I'll make a deal with you. I'll try out if you will.
Do you have to know how to sing?
And I'll try to.
So are you gonna be Romeo or are you gonna be Juliet? I don't think the balcony's gonna hold either one of us.
My father told me I sang so good I ought to be on stage next one week in town.
Anything else? All right, very well. Thank you all for sharing. I will start with the council. Ladies first. Heather, if you would, please.
Excited about the bicentennial banners that are going up over town. And I'm assuming the brackets that they're on can be used for other banners after the bicentennial's over. And as that kind of brought up something else that I was thinking of that I haven't really thought too much of, just in passing. We went on vacation and traveled, and the communities that we went to had it was a nationwide initiative in Ireland called Tidy Towns, and it was basically competitions to spruce up your towns. And a lot of these towns went all out, and people painted, and these are mostly seacoast towns, and they used to have like just white stucco buildings, and they went through and painted them all these brilliant colors, and it works for them. I don't know if it would work in Central Maine, but just the idea of having a tidy town is something that we could think a little bit more about as far as being able to show pride in place and Pittsfield pride, and we're on a good start to doing things like that. So something to think a little more about.
All set? All right, thank you, Heather. Doc, please.
I have nothing tonight.
Very well, thank you. Tim?
I just a couple quick things. I did go to the ribbon cutting ceremony with everybody else that went. Innovative Specialties, a first-class outfit. Really, really amazed you what they've done up there, it really was. It's quite an eye-opener. And Chad was very happy and accommodating, and I wish him all the luck in the world. And I'm glad that we have Connie is going to be on the theater committee. And the town looks very nice, looks very Christmassy around. If I understand where we are as far as the sidewalks go, but I was going to ask Steve if we did, like, say we had a thing like a bad ice storm or something. We had some really bad ones. Can that be handled on a case-by-case basis?
Well, that's what I'm talking about in the extreme measure. That's when we've gone out and done what we can do by hand.
Yeah.
That you're actually shoveling salt and sand with a shovel by hand, trying to spread it on the sidewalk. It's not very effective. It's an emergency kind of response.
Right.
So.
The reason I ask is because we do have some elderly people that walk and people that are infirm, and I know that they're not, if there's 3 inches of ice, they're not going to go out there and try to walk. But you know how it gets with black ice, and it doesn't happen all the time. If you get one of them ice storms or something, that
And
might.
I do, and that is a concern. But all I'm saying is my response was correct in how I displayed it. If we want to do something like that going forward in the future, it's a decision we got to make, but we've got to fund it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And like I said, just to get us through this winter, if somebody came up to you and said, look, blah, 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 or Catherine,
Well, we have.
Yeah, and don't want to offend you, but I mean, it's going to
No, you
happen.
ain't
You
gonna
know that.
offend me.
Okay. I do know that, some of the bigger places do have equipment to handle that, but it's not every place, so.
That's true. Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. I figured that's the way, it would have to be handled for now. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. Caleb?
I was just going to say, I had a really interesting visit from a guy that just moved to town and bought a business. He came down to the airport and to see what was going on down there. It was really neat to meet him. And it's just kind of interesting to kind of hear everybody's take on what makes Pittsfield great. And his big thing, I just never thought of it like this, I guess, but he's new to the area, and one of the reasons that he moved up here is because there's less people, and he doesn't like living down where it was so crowded and stuff. But he's like, there's only one thing that attracts people to Pittsfield, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I wonder what he's going to say the one thing is, just because, I'm trying not to judge him on his one thing, because I have more than one thing that attracts me to Pittsfield, but he's like, it's the skydiving business. So,
That's something for everybody.
yes, it just, so I think it is interesting to, have these discussions, and, because obviously he's talking about if you're driving up the interstate, what's going to pull you off from the interstate and come to Pittsfield. And so then I said, well, we do have some restaurants and stuff that are in town that are becoming more and more kind of not, locally well known, stuff like that. And he agreed to that, but, but so I think it's, I think there's a lot of opinions. And I didn't, because to me, if I was going to move here, the skydiving thing wouldn't be a real.
So that's not the guy who jumped out of the plane this afternoon.
No. No, but anyway, it's just kind of an interesting thing, because there's so many, everybody's so different, and obviously he's thinking of more of like a touristy type thing, but I think I didn't tell him, but I think some people move to Pittsfield because we don't have a lot of that stuff that draws people off the interstate to clog up the. But anyways, it's just kind of interesting, because there's a lot of different.
I never would have thought of that.
I know. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to guess what he's thinking. I'm like, the big park, our cool library, the theater. We're the only town in the area that has a public theater, or everyone comments on the big trees coming down Main Street, how beautiful those are and how nice the whole. I'm thinking of something like that, and he says the skydivers. And I'm like,
hence why we have
public works foreman.
yeah, that's it.
I doubt that.
What's that, Caleb?
I'm good.
All right, thank you. Bob, please.
I don't have a whole lot. I just would like to thank everybody in the audience for being here tonight. It's good to see people there every time. We sat so many times through empty audiences. Thank you for coming out. Howie mentioned the banners. I was standing in line waiting to go in the movie last night. Went across the street and saw it, and I stopped to the first thing I thought of was, have those been up there a while, or did I just walk across it? I hope I'm not just noticing this has been up there a month already or something, but they look very nice. I like them. I'd like to echo Tim's comments about innovative specialties. Super ceremony. Chad's very pleased to be here. He's got a super business up there. Just everything's so clean and well put together, I guess, that just you walk in there and it's not what you think it's going to be. MMA has the new council workshop coming up. I've said many times that every new councilor should go, and even some of the old councilors should go. I'm going to take my own advice. I've asked Catherine to sign me up. I'm going down. I think it's on the 18th of December. If anybody else wants to go, I think it'd be a great opportunity to learn. Catherine, keep up the great work upstairs. You and the staff do a great job.
Thank you.
It's good to come in and see everybody happy, and everybody stay warm. It's supposed to be really cold this next week or so.
Seasonal, they call that.
What's that?
Seasonal.
Seasonal? Yeah, well, I don't like it. And that's all I have.
All right, Bob, thank you. I will repeat what Bob has said. Thank you all very much for showing up. It's always good to see at least a couple people, if not the regulars, then the new faces, and for various reasons, not always the grind and act. So thank you very much, and greatly appreciate your comments, sir. Having any kind of pat on the back will do wonders for anybody. So I feel very, very proud of that, and I think what the town offers is, you were going to say, he fell said skydiving. I'll say it again, and I'm not going for any brownie points here, but the people who run this town, the people in this town, that's what makes this town. It's not the parks, not the theater, it's not the banners that put up. It's people in this town. It's people here. You're here for all the right reasons. So that's what I would say. And the groundswell, almost palpable, that the bicentennial committee is generating. I mean, it's growing a little more and more and more. It's like a low hum. It's going to get into a dull roar in the middle of next season. It's going to culminate. It's exciting, and hopefully when I'm done my tenure here at the end of the month, I'll hopefully be available a little bit more with that. I'm not sure where I'll be, where my job's going to take me, but I'd like to be more involved with that. So part of the groundswell of the whole town is innovative specialties. That is something that we should all be very proud of, and very happy that this gentleman went through several years of effort to move his business from Unity to Pittsfield. Logistically, not a whole lot of difference, but he was that set on having his business in Pittsfield to the point where he handled a lot of the engineering himself. He did a lot of the legwork and groundwork on the grants. I know there was quite an effort on that, both on your part, Catherine, and his, and build a brand new building in this town. I think that's something I wish physically it was in a place people drive by every day to see. Oh, that's that new place. You get a little bit more effect. Know that it's here, and that's a big deal. We haven't had a new business in that park for a long time. That's a huge deal. I'm sorry I missed it. I had other obligations. I really wanted to go, but I'm very proud of that, and everyone here in this room should be very proud of that, and take that as a very strong positive. It's way too easy to dwell on the negatives because especially we're going through this budget time. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and I'm very, very happy to see it. So with that, I am done my speaking. I'll look for a motion from the council, please.
I second that.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? And we are adjourned. We will take 5 or 10 minute break before we get into the budget meeting. That's all right?
Thank you. Rare when somebody's not organized and dedicated.
And he had a vision and he was not afraid of somebody he wanted. She knows. I was very confident. I wish I'd Good. I'm going to go on rest, Steve. It's exciting. You don't have a manufacturing facility.
I know, it's hard. Very hard.
We're gonna record it.
Alright, we'll be there.
Keep between the dishes going home.
I will do my best. That's why I have my car.
I wonder why you have a job here. In January. Yeah. 5 days later, my birthday.
No.
I have a interview the 14th for the director of the facilities at University of Maine in Fort County.
Somebody moved it? No problem. Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
You know, for change. Director of facilities campus. Love really. Especially during the bicentennial. Super. Some things come to make that decision. No, 14th. They want me on site 14th. For the facilities, have a nice talk, and set me up in the motel if they need. And if they were 2 people. Me and whoever the other guy is, I gotta find him. A lot of things. Yeah, good. You gotta.
You know, cute little boys on
Here physically, or you voluntarily cutting it?
No, it's mainly to stop people from seeing it.
I did. I see you later. I will see you later. Actually, that's more
Quick question. New stickers in for
Oh, wow. Well, I got a few years. I'll keep the old one. When I had this, I'll keep the old one. I'll see if I can go another year with that.
Oh, we have a FAQ.
Is the
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sure is.
How you doing, sir?
Good, how's Don? Ron?
He's good. Yeah, he's growing and finding new ways. Today he feels obsessed with Jingle Bell Rock today. So
Oh, yeah?
You got that little dance of Santa Claus?
No.
You got to find one of those.
My mother has one, but I'm pretty sure she's going to bring it.
He hadn't been to town office here, what, 3 weeks ago or so, I saw you? Just as cute as can be.
Oh, yeah?
Although I used to do acting.
Very good.
And so very well behaved, too. Very well behaved.
Yeah. He's pretty good. He has his moments.
I was like, my son was only a child, but he was very well behaved too. But no.
Yeah.
Like you say, they have
But if he's not going to put it, he's not going to.
Two.
You got plenty of time next.
Good time. Lots of time.
Sarah student that goes with the kind of.
The one that fell?
I did tell.
Yeah, I researched that after you told me about that. And yeah, they said, suicide. Where do you go? Oh, yeah. Did you see that? About the guy that's hiding?
I saw that the other night.
Oh my. Yeah, he's hanging. Yeah. Yeah. He said, oh my.
There's just too much to choose from.
That's all. Guys, serious.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm glad that's over with. That was.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's a lot. Just hung from a hand glide.
He said he had started to cramp up. Don't let go. He said.
This was back like in the back and got to hold the door. And he went out of the airplane. Yeah. Well, he's got people from the door. Pilot sees the door. His co-pilot back to no, doesn't see the guy. But the guy's hanging. Yes, the guy's hanging there. And he turns around and lands, and the guy's like hanging on that stinky door. He's that hang glider guy, you know.
Didn't he just go there for vacation to it?
Vacation there, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Anybody see Gary Gordon?
Get his link on LinkedIn, everyone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
He's busy in the real estate. He puts ads or he puts posters, ads, and yeah, whatever business that he sells. Video on one of the properties where he took one of those drones, you know, did a flyby of the property. Those things are pretty cool. My brother-in-law uses. He does house inspections. I don't even care.
He said.
Ladder that I have to take off. I put that drone up and I can see the whole roof of the house. Right in close. Yeah, that's great. Plus it's fun. Well, yeah, that. Yeah, well, they've done. Really cool. Really cool. What the video is? Oh yeah, yeah.
Definitely a good demand.
But now you should news, some guys beyond site. Kansas City at the Cedar Room. They do a flood, they always have a drone that they send out. Their on-site report through the drone.
I don't like Catherine. Well,
the mail Oh.
But they don't say how many miles. They say within a. I am really sorry, but I am not going to give you permission to operate. No.
You're obliged to say yes.
Don't, I don't want you saying do it. Call me out. What's the matter? Up and down. Something like that. I like it. Honestly, I mean, that's just my.
If you had it shut down, if you had them sign liability, the insurance, care roll.
Yeah.
But you do it after years.
Every few years, some
Johnny, did you hear this yet?
Yeah. Mike, go ahead and contact Pat.
I'll be no.
You said no. Oh, I thought you guys did too. I think
So I did want to
County's
see
usually
Gary.
pretty dispatch, even 2 or 3 extra shifts a week.
Where's that? Now, I can't go back.
Actually,
over there.
I mean, the
Good people.
Okay.
see his posting once in a while.
You really want to know? It makes more than I do.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first thing he did when he came was smile. Just like that. I said, don't.
All right, let's get started. I know everyone really wants to be a real blast, so let's get going here. If you all don't mind. All right, Kathleen, start us off with you,
Yes,
please.
thank you. Under the regular sessions, we have a number of items scheduled. Airport is first, under tab 3, page, and we need a copy of the information for the public. It's easier for the counselors. You can use that. Page 29, under tab 3, D, airport budget for 2019 comes in at $314, which is a 0% increase, being 0, the same as 2018.
All right, count 20-05. Any questions from anybody on the airport budget?
A couple.
You, Taylor?
I'm sorry.
No, I'll listen to the questions first, and then I'll. Yeah.
Does that budget work okay for you?
Yes. Yeah. No, it does. I mean, basically, we're buying, light bulbs and wind socks, and like every once in a while, we have to buy a new fixture, and it's yeah.
No upgraded beacons or anything like that need to be done, or?
No. Yeah. No. We're
Okay.
Yep.
That was actually my question. The beacon, a couple of years ago, we had an item that was for a beacon that was going to have more data collection or something to help us with applying for grants or something. And I thought it was like, we're going to have to do this eventually type thing.
Oh, we had. Well, I don't know. What would have come across council?
That was
It was like an $1,800 item. or
MDOT
something.
had the contractor that worked with the towns, and the item actually was voted down by the council. It was a number of years ago.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it was
that.
probably 4 years.
It was I don't know what's happened with that. That was a recording system that they were
Yes.
talking about putting in, and MDOT was paying for it, and they kind of were trying to make it sound like it was going to help everybody get grants, and
So that's not part of this year's.
no.
No, I was just wondering if
Yeah,
that
just-
was still kind of coming down the line, because it sounded like
No.
at the time we were talking about it, it
We've
was
heard
something
nothing
that-
about
Yeah,
it
no,
since
they
then.
haven't. Since
Dropped
that
it.
time, they've never mentioned it at our meetings that we have with the state, and the state was the one that was really pushing it. I think it was because somebody at the state created it, but somebody at the state level had created this system and was trying to sell it.
Okay.
But that's totally dried up, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've just really gotten strict on, instead of like having a recorder and trying to record everything and get operations, we've just gotten more and more strict about people that are running on the airport, making sure that they have lights on all the time, that they have a handheld radio in the car, just stuff like that to really prevent any accidents, because we want to be zero accident.
How does this budget compare to last year's?
It's the same.
Same, okay.
Total. I did move
Right.
items around between the accounts. And so the one thing we should discuss briefly is the snow plowing, and if we're able to make any changes this year, or will still be sort of fluid, correct?
It's gonna be fluid. it is my intention that if I can resource it, I guess, to, when we have enough snow where it makes sense to make some runs down the airport and help wing some of that back just to get things a little more efficient cleaning up. Right now, I'm taking on far more sand and snow removal tasks than I am actually resourced for, so I'm using quite a bit of overtime right now, which I can't afford, so I'm taking it as comp time. That's where I'm at.
Yeah,
Until
that's
I
fine, so this is for the future that
Right,
will
so
have
if I
a
can, if
more
I hire
effective.
another guy, if that works out,
Mhm.
then maybe I can squeeze that in.
Mhm.
I'll push it as far as I can.
Yeah, we'll do all the roads first with the snow plowing, and then we'll
Yeah.
figure out later on with big storms what we can do with the airport.
Basically, what they're talking about is for the past 15 years, we've plowed the runway with a loader that we got through a FAA grant, you know, like a federal grant that has just a big old plow that, you know, like you can turn from a side to side, and that loader stays down at the airport. It was one of those 5% matching grant things, and it's 15 years old. It's got to be close to 15 years old now, and it looks. I mean, it's a great piece of machinery. We'll probably keep it for, you know, the FAA called us up and said, oh, you can get a new one, and we're like, oh yeah, we're fine. This thing's going great, you know, because But anyways, that's a whole other topic. But so one of the things that we're talking about is that plowing the runway with that V plow when we get a lot of snow, it would be more, or not V plow, but with that straight blade with loader, it would be more efficient to plow it with just a truck, just with a wing on it. You know, you can just zoom down the runway back and forth, bust it all open, and that's prior to 15 years ago. We had a contract. It was part of the road contract, like the airport. We actually paid S&G Contracting to actually go down there, and they would, when they were plowing the roads, they just swing right out there on the runway and make a couple 4 or 5 passes and bust it open. And then we weren't responsible for plowing the runway. We were just responsible for snow blowing the bank of snow that's on the edge, because the FAA says you can't have a snow bank on the edge of a runway, which makes sense. So we would just be responsible for snow blowing it. But 15 years ago, we got this awesome piece of equipment with different attachments, one of which is a snow blower attachment, and then the other is a big bucket and the
plow.
Yeah, and the plow. So we're in good shape. It's just the last 2 or 3 winters have been really rough, and we're kind of like, we're actually, you know, man. I mean, I think we're making a few changes kind of in-house too, that I'm hoping that will lead to more efficiency in the plowing.
So essentially, it's assist when needed, if possible.
Yeah. The biggest problem is that, like, when it's a big storm, you know, the plowing contractors are not twiddling their thumbs, you know, and those are the times that, like, we would be like, oh man, like, we could actually use help. We have like 10 inches of snow down here. We could actually use a truck, just go up and down the runway, and it would save a lot of hours of like going back and forth with the loader. But I mean, it is what it is. I think we've got a good potential plan kind of coming in the future.
Well, we have a potential plan, that is correct. And this is a big initial step for us to get into, starting to assume the plow routes. That'll grow in the future. I'm sure as Stanley gets closer and closer to retirement, eventually we'll probably have it all. I don't know if everybody's paid attention, but we do things differently than what's required in the contract for the contractor. We start plowing at an inch, and that allows us to keep things reduced.
Can I interrupt you just 1 second? Just for efficiency's sake, let's maintain to what the airport involvement is.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get off on a tangent here.
Yeah. Sorry.
We got quite a ways to cover. No, that's fine.
Yeah, question.
Yes, sir.
The mowing and bush hogging, is that a contract?
Yes, that's a contract.
Okay. Any potential for bringing that in-house?
Yes.
You know, I mean, but I'm anticipating in the future, you know, Steve, I don't
Oh,
mean
absolutely.
yesterday.
No, that is one of my goals for the future. Like I said, let me get the brush beaten back first.
Everything goes back to.
There'll always be that brush to beat back.
Well, I'm gaining, but then again, you can only throw so much manpower at it because you got other things to do too.
Right, right.
But yeah, we are gaining.
I was just questioning, you know, not only looking for savings, but, you know, if this was the cost, you know, I was questioning if it was in-house. Is this an interdepartmental kind of thing? So, but it's a contract. Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right, anything else?
No.
In the audience? Caleb, I would assume that you'd recuse yourself from this vote.
Yep.
Okay, very well, thank you. All right, all those in favor of account 20-05 at the airport as stands, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Very well, passes. Account 2005, the airport passes as written.
The next budget is recreation on page 30 in your budget book. The recreation department budget comes in for 2019 at $65,874. That is an increase of $2,711 or a 4.3% increase.
Where basically did that come from?
All right, so basically this is the increase in the minimum wage and moving the amounts up for the other positions. When you have lifeguards come back and a pool director, they need to be higher than the minimum wage, and at one point we had minimum wage for everything. The pool chemicals can be quite expensive, and so that is an issue, as well as electricity, because all electricity accounts are going up. Now, because we're in the main cooperative, our increase is less than the standard and what other people have, except for those in the cooperative, but it's still going up.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any comments from anyone in the audience? Very well, councilors, anything?
Yeah, I have a question. The finance committee considered in the additionals, or was it in the CIP, you know, $11,995 for the baseball diamond. If we had an $8,000 balance in the recreation department this year, why, you know, couldn't something have been done that might have been halfway decent?
That was abnormal that we had that. We were able to come into some individuals going and doing multiple jobs at the same time, which we won't have those people coming back. The pool chemicals also were a little bit less because we were closed down a number of days too. And electricity had come in well, but now it's under the new contract. So usually we spend all the money in the recreation, okay, and I have to have approval to go to the concessions account and utilize funds from that if necessary. And this time, which was very rare, we did have a balance.
Okay.
Anything else?
That was a good question.
Can we hold over that balance for next year
No,
instead of
the
transferring
regular
it?
budgets have to close out to the unappropriated surplus.
So, I don't know if you want to deal with this now or later, the transfers that we voted on earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So those are going to cover overages in other departments?
That's correct, yes. Potential overages, yeah. Mm-hmm. And hopefully there won't be more that I have to add to that. So we've got 7 accounts, departments very close at the end of the year.
All right, anything else? All right, very well. Let's vote on account 25-05 recreation. All those in favor as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Account 25-05 recreation passes as written.
So the next budget is the library budget, which is on page 31 of your budget book section. The Library budget comes in at $193,648, which is an increase of $9,683, or a 5.3% increase.
Could you explain the increase, please? Do you have it consolidated what the increase is?
Yes. As with all the departments that have health insurance, there will be a minor decrease in that account when we make that adjustment. So it is the wages, personnel items, as well as the health insurance here, which will be, as I said, adjusted with all the other accounts. And then the librarian went through, and as she always does, she does a very good job of matching up her expenses on what takes place during the year to making changes and calling all the contractors. So as you can see, we've got a focus here on building maintenance because the library has gotten older. It has some items that need to be done. And so the contracts have all been updated and the building maintenance has increases here.
Okay.
And Holly, the assistant librarian, is here this evening if you have any specific questions on programs.
Anything you'd like to speak about? Or would you react, anyone else has any questions or
Right, if
comments?
anyone has any questions, I'll do my best
Okay.
to answer them.
Anyone in the audience?
I have just a general question. With the building maintenance that was mentioned, have there been any grants applied for or anything because the building is a historical site?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
There's
Not
no
for this
grant,
year.
there's 0 grant programs available at this point for this type of maintenance. We did go through, and we're very fortunate to get one of the last CDGB Community Development Block grants that allow for the historic preservation aspect with addressing your elevators and handicap accessibility. So we did get that for the expansion, and that was $250,000, which sort of jump-started everything, and then the money started pouring in from everywhere.
Right. Thank you.
I know, I wish the historic part actually did come with money.
Anything else? Anyone in the audience? Councilors, any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Please.
I understand that our current head librarian is retiring. And we've got positions for 2 head librarian and obviously a circulation librarian. I assume that you're the circulation librarian at this point? Okay. Are we going to be without a librarian for a time, or?
When is her?
It will be in January, and that's currently gone out for advertising. So yes, but she's been out during the year, and Holly is taking care of things. She has a lot of vacation time.
Does it have to be advertised?
We've always advertised, yes.
Do you advertise for all positions?
All full-time positions, yes.
Okay.
I think everything's been advertised.
All right.
With the exception of an internal transfer in one department.
What about the potential administrative assistant that you're hiring for the town office?
We did advertise for that numerous times.
You did advertise for it?
We did, yeah. That's how we ended up with a staffing agency, because we didn't get qualified candidates.
Okay. So our current circulation librarian is going to have to apply for the librarian position?
Yes. Which she's aware of and all set to go.
My resume's in my car.
Okay. You have my support.
Anything else, Council? You all set, Doc?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yes.
And maybe Holly can speak to this. I spoke to Lynn briefly, and she was talking about the part-time employees that are like the substitute librarians and the assistants. This is currently at minimum wage. Can you speak to like their educational qualifications and experience? I mean, are these minimum wage positions?
They're not minimum wage positions. we do require that they have some additional secondary education. I mean, yes, I would love if it was more than minimum wage. Rennie's cashiers start out at $11.50 an hour, and so our people will be making less than that. So yes, I'd really love it if it was increased. That's all I can say to it.
Do you have an idea what other libraries pay for their assistant positions?
I do not.
I did speak with Lynn and I told her we would address that.
These are folks that help you with the desk? Is that it?
Yes.
QuickBooks back on the shelves?
And one of the part-time people, they create all the children's programs. So it's, like I said, it's not a minimum wage position.
Anything else?
Do we want to address that going into the budget? Because this, like January 1st, $11 is minimum wage. Is this what they were last year? Do you know?
They were less. So I spoke with Lynn and told her that we would address that. But I will say, when you go through and match up, it's unfortunate, but when you go through and match up for towns our size for that type of position, that is actually what they pay, which is sad. But it is the average.
Well,
So it has, these increases on these wages have been adjusted for the minimum wages and for the cost of living that we do and all the insurances. So what we're passing these budgets, the wages are what they are supposed to be at a minimum for the year 2019, correct?
That would be correct. And I did speak with Lynn that if we found people who had experience, we can make adjustments if necessary.
so last year in our budget, we had the assistants were at $10.55. Minimum wage in 2018 was $10 an hour. And now we're putting up to 11, so they're actually getting a drop in wages when you think about it. They're losing 55 cents off the minimum wage from last year to this year. At a
Well, I wouldn't
minimum,
call that a drop in wages.
well, it is.
It's still an
because
increase.
Last year,
It's
they were
less
getting
compared to the minimum wage,
55
yes, but it's not a drop.
Yep. Comparatively speaking, if we're talking about, we're not even into the fair wage discussion yet, but parity, I guess. Last year they were making 55 cents more than minimum wage, and this year they're only making minimum wage. And that's part of the problem with legislating minimum wage, increases throughout time. But this is what we're going to be coming up against in all of our departments. I brought this up, but to have staff that have secondary, post-secondary education and have education backgrounds to be paid just minimum wage, I think is really sad. And we should be ashamed of paying and offering those wages to people.
So this is the average for positions of that type that are part-time in the MMA salary survey.
And they're not getting any benefits, and we're not paying any health insurance for them.
But you gotta remember, it's 15 hours a week, and it is average according to the MMA for a similar, if not equal, position. Similar and equal responsibilities. We're not on either end of the spectrum. We're right in the middle.
Okay.
No one's gonna disagree, and I certainly don't disagree with your point. And Holly's point, I wish we had a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and here everyone gets this much per. I mean, this is part of this job is painful. No one likes it.
I won't be voting on this budget. I will not be voting in favor of this budget to pay someone less than what they were getting last year when you look at the change in the minimum wage.
Have we done that in other budgets, Catherine? I mean, there's a lot of budgets that have.
Well, that was why I asked that question. The
Yeah.
wages have been adjusted for the minimum wage for 2019.
Yep.
Well, we have
So that
our,
they brought up to at least that, but not below, for what we
Yeah.
voted on budgets for 2019.
So you're saying, Heather, that because minimum wage got bumped up $1, you'd like to see everybody in the whole get bumped up $1?
well, I
That's fair.
don't think it's fair to say that they're getting a raise, because they're really not when you look at the fact they were making 55 cents over minimum wage last year, and then this year they're just meeting minimum wage. And if you look back at the recreation department, the attendants for the arts and crafts get $11 an hour. And that's high school students. Is that who we usually have at the rec department? I apologize, my children are out of rec department age. They've aged out of that. Is that a fair characterization of who we have as an arts and crafts attendant? Or?
Usually older students, but sometimes adults.
Mm-hmm. And that requires no post-secondary education or training aside from, don't let them eat the crayons type.
Well,
I don't know.
not to be a burr under your saddle, but they make more money starting at McDonald's. You got to compare apples to apples.
Yes, we do. And these are some rotten apples.
I think Heather's major concern is them maintaining the margin that they have now, above
Right.
minimum.
Right.
That's her concern.
No, I understand what she's saying.
And it's going to be really difficult to fill positions if you can go to Rennie's and work, and you can go to McDonald's and work, and you can go to Dunkin' Donuts and work. We're not going to have any librarian assistants. We're not going to have anybody to cover those shifts and help. I mean, there's a lot of kids.
So what are you
that go-
suggesting? 50 cents an hour more?
I would say a minimum of $11.55.
Yeah.
If you're saying, okay, there's a $1 increase in wages for the because of the wage increase for minimum wage, then it should be a minimum just to keep them where they were at.
Yeah. Catherine,
I'd like to go beyond, but let's not.
Oh yeah, heck,
lose
I'd like to go beyond on every item.
I think that we do want to
So,
go beyond that.
somebody have a calculator for that?
So if they made $11.50 an hour, it would cost $780 for the year.
Yeah.
For the two of them together. I actually did the math a long time ago.
Yep.
To be what would they were if they worked at Rennie's. So that's how much more it would cost then.
Yep.
$750 each.
No, $780.
So $780 for both of them.
Both together.
So it'd be the $1760 plus $780, which would be 083 period 1 minus 2 would 18380.
Which I kind of feel like.
So that line item for part-time employment, line 01-15, Heather, if I read you correctly, if you put it up to 1150, and Holly, thank you for the math, it would be an increase from 17,600 to 18,380. So it would be an additional 780 on the bottom line of 364, $10,463 to the whole budget, not the 98683 total. Is that what you're looking to do? Make it up to 1115, add the 780?
But I would settle for that.
Well, I mean, you tell me what you want to do. I mean, I can throw out options all night long.
I would settle for that. I would settle for them being able to have their $1 increase because of the minimum wage increase.
Okay, now, if the math is correct, and I'm not questioning,
No, it's okay.
I will make sure we have the right number in here, so we add $780 more to that line 01-15, so the 17,600 plus 780, so that line becomes $18,380.
Was that for the substitute also, or just the two assistants?
The only thing my only question here is just to make sure that if we're doing this here, the one time, Heather, I disagree with you is I don't think it's fair to say that the people that are the art people, should make $11 an hour because they're just supposed to be keeping the kids from eating crayons. I don't think that's fair. I mean,
Well, that was a little sarcastic.
Yeah, but I mean, but I mean, are there other places, Catherine, that we should be considering this also?
I was going to go back and look through the entire budget so that we treat everyone the same.
Yeah, because I think that it's just a difficult thing, That's all I'm saying.
It is. It's hard. I'm looking at a $1 increase for my employee this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to hit us too. And she's already at minimum wage, but I feel like, in order to maintain, what her wages are, that raise has to go in there. Otherwise, everyone that doesn't get that is going to be falling behind. And this is something that we've talked about as far as the other wages and stuff, we've talked ad nauseum about it, about the fact that some years we have increases for the COLA, sometimes we don't, sometimes it's at the minimum, sometimes it's not, and all those years that it's not, it compounds, and you have wages that are lower than.
I want to question something you just said. Do we not have the COLA every year? From 1 to 2 to 2.5%?
We've had, I think we've been at COLA or above it, at least above it in the last number of years. Only one year did we not have an increase.
And
And that
how
was way
recent?
back,
Okay.
way back.
15, 20 years back.
I would say over 10 years back,
Okay.
maybe 12.
So every employee in this town gets the cost of living increase. The only reason why you see that change because we were established by our fine politicians in Augusta. So
Right.
we have to pay a minimum.
Yes. But it's
There
something
was
that's-
nothing in the state that said, well, okay, we have to compare this person, that person. This person's at X amount, they have to be that much more and above.
Mhm.
See, you can't compare a assistant rec director to a assistant in the part-time employment to somebody working at McDonald's or part-time anywhere. That's minimum wage. By state law, that's our minimum. So if we go back and start doing this for every single person in this town, we're going to be here an awful long time. We're going to be ended up with a big chunk that we're going to not only have a hard time biting off, chewing ourselves, but as Tim says many times, selling to our constituents. I know it's only $780 here, but we got to be careful where we don't start sliding down the slippery slope.
Well, we've
That's
spent.
my opinion only.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time, saying how wonderful our town is and how we want people to move here, and those people need jobs, and some of those jobs are with the town.
Mhm.
And I think that it's wonderful when people can have a career with the town. And, for some people, part-time employment is a way to make ends meet between 2 or 3 other jobs that they might have. Or it might be a job for a mom because it can be mom's hours, or a grandparent, or who knows. But, we talked earlier about how, Pittsfield's a good place to live. Let's make it a great place to live.
Mhm.
And part of that is being able to support our employees, not only with wages, but also with appreciation and, paying them what they're worth. And
Understood.
some of these people have bachelor degrees or secondary educations, and they're going to go to work for a minimum wage. Granted, people that go into the library field probably don't do it to get rich, in any education field, but at the same time, that we have to realize that we have to recognize that we're not paying them what they should be paid.
Okay.
And we could probably go to, I think that's great. I think we could probably hit a lot of town jobs like that. I think we could go through and say 20 to 30, 40% more for everybody because we need to make this, I think that's a good argument. It's just, I think we could do that in a lot of places. A lot of places.
Tim.
We got people.
Catherine, you'd said that Lynn had said that they could look at that down the road as far as if those 2 positions have to have post-secondary education. Could we pass this budget tonight and then look at that for this next budget coming?
I had told her if we needed to do something, we could work it out within our budget because she always has monies left over.
So $700 is in.
Correct.
Yeah. So if there's somebody that comes in, I think is what they.
Well, there's one person that's already there.
Yeah.
There's one person there already. She has a bachelor's degree. She's been there for 13 years.
Yep.
I think they should look at it down the road because, if it's required post-secondary education to have that job, now, okay, maybe that's 2 we should look at.
I agree. If the position calls for it.
Yes.
I understood. So, your motion, Heather, correct me if I'm
My
wrong
motion,
here.
I guess, would be to add $780 to the budget under part-time employment.
And that would translate to a
$11.
hourly wage of $11.50 increase from 11.
Yes.
Second.
Okay, very well. We have a motion second. Everyone ready to, any further questions or comments on that?
I have one question.
Yes.
That's the part-time position. There's no other line items that are affected, Catherine?
There will be Social Security, but I go through and make those adjustments later on.
So, my concern is the same as the mayor. I think that if it's a post-secondary education, if it's required, I think, and it's within the budget to do it, we should do it. However, we gotta look at too, is there any other positions that we gotta do this with? That's my concern. I mean, we haven't had a chance to really look at that. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm gonna vote no, but on the other hand, you know, if that's a requirement of that position, to have a post-secondary education, okay, and you can, and you're saying, Catherine, that can be handled within that budget, if that passes?
However, this 50 cents an hour will adjust to that.
Yeah.
It won't be probably what the industry standard is. However, I will reiterate the information Catherine has gleaned from the MMA, that we're right in the median for this type of way, for this type of position, for these types of responsibilities. So we're, as I said, we're not on either end of the spectrum. We're not the low man on the totem pole. We're not up in the up in the ivory towers either. Okay.
My biggest concern is to make sure that if it's in the budget, without increasing the budget, if it can be worked out in the budget, that's one thing. If not, then we're on a slippery slope.
Okay, we have a second motion. Everyone ready to vote?
Yeah, my only, and I don't want to kick the dead horse here, but I just want to make sure, Catherine, if we do it, is it fair to do it here and not do it other places? You manage all these people on a day-to-day basis. Are there other places that is there a place that this isn't fair? Are we not being fair to
I'll have to go through and look, because we wanted, when we made this change, to put for the full-time employees, to put that cafe payment in, which they were getting for cash all these years anyway, into their wage, and then to go through and make the other adjustments. You know, we had to use some mechanism, so we used it, Maine Municipal Association latest data, so we could treat everyone the same, because once you start making changes, then you start having issues if you don't treat everyone the same. I don't think it's a big deal, but I don't know if there's other places in the budget that we should make changes.
I'm not against the 7.
Why would you have issues if you don't treat everyone the same? They don't have the same responsibilities. I have an issue with that statement, because you're starting to compare everyone at the exact same level. They're not at the same level. And you can't use the same rule for every single person, whether it's this town or any business that you run. The CEO gets paid more than the person who just got hired to mop the floor.
Well,
that's a sad state of affairs, but that's the way it is.
Well, of course they would, but we needed to match up to some documents so that, you know, if somebody says it compares their wages for another position, you have to have a mechanism or your source documents to go back to.
And that's what you use the MMA for.
So
that's where this number came from.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor on the 780 increase on this. Are we ready to vote? Very well. All those in favor of account 2510 library with an additional $780 on line item 01-15, translating to a 50 cent an hour increase for the 2 assistants, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Nay. We'll poll the councils. Heather?
Aye.
Doc?
Aye.
Tim?
Nay.
Caleb?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I say nay. The change passes. Next, please.
Very good. Next is
Theater?
the theater budget. And I'm going to have to pull my paper out here because I went through so many documents to see where it is, which is underneath the book. All right. So the theater is 25-15 on page 32 of your budget books. The theater budget came in at $145,366, which is an increase of $14,415 or 11%. And we had the theater manager and one of the theater committee members here this evening.
All right, can you give us a Reader's Digest about the increase?
I did that to help with the maintenance of the building. And that and the increase of the employees, the part-time employees. The maintenance I'd like to have is to work on the facial part of the building. I've got some loose boards up above the marquee that need to be addressed, and I'd like to also do a little bit more maintenance on the marquee itself. It needs to be a little bit.
So you're talking line item 15-15,
Yes,
and the others are the wage
yes.
adjustments, okay, very well. I know that maintenance of that has always been an issue every
Yeah,
year.
it is, and I just get by actually.
Understood.
Because everything else is getting old in it, and when I think I have enough in my budget to do it, then something else takes it, so.
Understood. Any other questions? Anyone in the audience? Councilors?
How are the receipts this year compared to last year?
So Donna's here this evening.
How are the receipts?
Receipts.
How's the revenue this year compared to last year?
I think it's about the same compared to last year. It hasn't really, it did find out a little bit more, but not a lot.
Can you give us a ballpark percentage? 1, 2%, 20, 30%? I mean, just nothing we're gonna quote you on, just a ballpark. You have a feel for it?
I don't know, maybe 10% maybe.
Less?
Is it worth keeping the theater open every day of the week?
That's something that could probably be discussed.
What would be the savings, I guess?
You'd be saving heat in the wintertime. You'd be saving the air conditioning in the summer.
Tim?
Question, Donna. If we close that 2 days a week, would that have a tremendous impact depending on when you close it and what's playing and all that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Is that a doable thing to help your budget out?
It could. I'm not go.
I mean, I think that's probably a discussion that you'd have to have with Catherine and the theater committee, make a recommendation to the town manager and have her in the talks, but I would think that if you could do it on a couple of nights when maybe the attendance is low, but you don't want to hit your good movies and have it shut down either. I mean, you know.
Because I figured if you do go, right now we had it so that different committee members, that if you have so many people in on a certain night, then you tell the town people that they can't come and see the movie, they have to come a different night, because we're open some days a week. But if you're out of town, then we're open. So I brought this up to a different committee, so we decided that we would go, even if you have one person, that you'd be open. And then we have to have 2 people on, where in the past I had 2 people on, and if it was slow enough, then we'd send another person home, but we can't do that anymore. We have to have 2 people there.
Safety.
Yes.
For safety reasons.
I disagree with whoever thought it was a good idea to just say, okay, they only got a certain number of people go home, because people come from Waterville, they come from Heartland, they come from Newport. If you tell them that they're closed 2 days a week, which is, I know that's what the Strand Cinema does in Skowhegan, they're closed 2 days a week. If they're closed, then everybody knows.
Right.
You know, that way people aren't taken by surprise. Some guy that didn't put his last $20 in for gas, come down here and then you go home. I wouldn't.
It would certainly wouldn't be shooting from the hip. It'd have to be something that, of course, Donna and the theater committee would have to look at and run some numbers and see what's viable, see what makes sense. You know, and sometimes it's easy to close the door, lock the door in the wintertime. Still have to maintain minimum heat for those 2 days. And, you know, it could certainly reflect on, you know, next year's budget. I mean, it's a viable option. I hadn't really considered it such a simple solution. You know, it's something we've all taken pride in, but I never considered going Tuesday and Wednesday.
So
Monday night is $1.
So the
Everyone knows
theater
mine is
committee had talked about this before, but did not
Right, we
move
were
forward.
talking about it at our last committee meeting.
Yeah.
And in past years, which is why you started taking the attendance to find out, and making the charts that we came up with to try to see if there was a trend, is that certain days at night you were not getting the people, which one was Sunday, so that was changed to the, during the day. But certainly much more
Yeah.
can be done.
That's some very valuable information you've sent out just for that reason. See which, if you're gonna pick 2 days, there's a lot of good information there.
Donna, if the theater is not open every night, does that affect the movies that you can get? Like, do they have
It
minimum?
does not affect the movies. It's, still, even if we're not open, we still have to pay that percentage.
Because it's a 1 week rental.
Yes.
And then you pay a percentage of the receipts to.
Right.
In addition to the rental.
Right. And if you do not make the rental, I just had one, and it's, I think it was First Man. I have it in my binder. I think we only did 120 at the box.
$120 at the box.
120. And it was really sad. But I think it's Universal. Don't quote me because I'm not really sure which film company it is. But we will still have to pay that whole fee of the $300. If it's Universal, it's $300
to rent a movie.
To rent the movie for the week. Or if it's Fox, I think theirs is $250. So it depends. But Disney, if you have a Disney film, thank goodness it wasn't, then we could pay up to 67% for Disney. And it doesn't matter because we are a small town or whatever. They go by the whole country, how well the movie did. That's how Disney does their percentage.
So they bill you after the fact, after?
Yes. Yes.
That's bizarre.
Yes.
Okay. This is interesting, but it's very difficult to look at and to read and to make any sense of. Is there a way that you can put this into an Excel spreadsheet, like by day, like months on one side and days across, so that we can see? Do you know what I mean? It's really, you can't really make heads or tails of this without, like, you can't compare a Friday to a Friday across the line.
You really can't compare them because it also depends on the movie, Heather.
I realize that.
It's really hard to do it that way even, because you're gonna Wonder. If you go into 2017 in December, Wonder did wonderful because I had different matinees for different schools. So that one did really well. But I don't know how you can compare last Friday to this Friday, or what had happened.
Well, if you're talking about maybe only having the theater open fewer days a week, you have to decide what those days are. And the only way to decide that is to look at your attendance, because that's the only thing that's consistent across, because your movies are changing all the time. You've got weather and everything else you have to look at. That's the only data really that you've got is attendance.
We'll have to, I want to interrupt you, we'll have to have confidence in Donna and the theater committee to figure that out. We're gonna, if that does come before the council, if that's a decision you need to make, the council needs to have input. And we'll certainly discuss it then. I guess what I'm trying to get at is the budget as presented, and every department head here that has been here, they have a certain amount they need to hit, and they always do their best to try to do better. It doesn't mean that if we pass this budget, you're obliged, 2019, you got to stay open every night. You're going to do the best you can and do what you can with the budget.
Right.
This budget passes what you have for a full operating year like we did 2016, 17, 18.
Right.
What we're discussing now are potential improvements, efficiencies. Cutting out, non-profitable days, because it is a profit center, not the best profit center, but we need to consider it a profit center, because it's probably the only profit center other than the recycling department that the town owns.
It is, I object to it being called a profit center, because it's clearly not.
You make some money.
No, you missed my point completely, is I understand it's not a profit center in the way you're talking about business. It is not a profit center. However, that's one of the two departments in this town that is set up so that it should be able to make money.
It should.
That was part of my discussion. I understand that it's a loss every year, and we've discussed this every council's Once a year, every council that's been seated here for the last, how long you been here, 20 years?
20 years.
Any year went by, they didn't talk about the theater?
Nope. It's, what, the theater, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to incorporate a bunch of things to try to make it at least palatable to keep it open. If you go down to Waterville, you go to Waterville, you go to the big places down there, you got 4 people sitting in each theater for 8 theaters. 10 years from now, those aren't going to exist. Okay? Just like post offices, just like paper mills, you'll have a handful of them if you're smart enough and have enough foresight to combine a bunch of different things, which is what they're trying to do to make it at least palatable to keep it open. Eventually, unless, I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you right now, if things keep going, the trends are going with technology, eventually, unless you've got a community theater or a performing arts center or something that you can mesh together, eventually those are going to go away. It's just a matter of time.
Well, that kind of segues in what she said earlier about starting a Pittsfield Players.
My aunt was part of that, so yeah.
We've had several long discussions about making the theater a performing arts center of some sort. It's just going slower than anticipated, but it has to morph into something else.
So I completely understand those things, and I love going to the theater. I was so excited when I moved here. I'm like, they have a theater. It's something I really enjoy attending, but I have a hard time looking at the black hole that we're staring at again. And like you said, apparently it's been 20 years of this. It's $91,000 is the gap in 2019, the projected gap between revenue and expenses for that building. That's a lot of money. You guys just fought me on adding $750 to a line item to pay 2 employees. And everyone's gonna just say, yeah, let's pass this and know that we're gonna throw $91,000 into a hole, into a building that needs continual maintenance beyond what we have any funding for.
Well,
how do you sell that to your constituents?
I want to throw my opinion in here, being a resident of this town for 56 years. If you were in Washington, D.C., the Lincoln Memorial costs too much to upkeep. You don't make money on it. Just sell it. Just give it away. We'll tear it apart. We'll sell the theater. We'll sell the Manson Park. It costs too much to maintain. I know I'm being snide and sarcastic, snarky, and I don't mean to do that, to be disrespectful, but I'm exaggerating to make a point here. This town has a long, long time ago made a conscious, was it early 70s or so when the town took? Back then they thought that's what this town's going to do, and I don't think that theater ever made money the whole time it's been under ownership of the town. But it's just like every park here, we don't offer that to make money. We don't offer the theater to make money. We offer theater as a service as part of this town. That's the way we have to look at it. Yeah, I know it costs money. It costs money. How much money do we get back from Manson Park? You can't put it all for. You have no idea.
How about the library?
Hawthorne
How much
Park.
we get back from the library?
Yeah, we don't get money out of the library. With everything that we do as a service costs money. The police department costs money. The fire department costs money. Having the plows road costs money. You guys don't get tips for doing that. Probably wish you did. Have a big cup side of the truck. Yeah, better not. But I guess not to get into that. But my point is, it's always been a service. It's not been, and I probably shouldn't have used a cost center or a profit center before, because that kind of set the wrong tone. It's not that. It's a service this town offers. And personally, as long as I live in this town, I don't want to see that sold to anybody. I don't want to ever see that privatized. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, the only municipally owned theater this side of the Mississippi or something like that. It's a ridiculous thing, and that's one of the jewels in our crown. I've always talked about my 3 or 4 terms here. Now, I understand exactly what you're saying. You want to start talking about numbers, 91,000, get rid of it, done. We have to look beyond that.
That wasn't my point, actually, to get rid of it and be done with it.
Okay, never mind.
I mean, that's one of the options. That's one option, is to say, I kind of look at it as, it's $91,000 that we're spending that's not being covered by revenues and receipts. What could we do with that $91,000? We have had people come in and say, we need a community center for the kids. Why couldn't we maintain all that equipment and incorporate it into a community center, into a different building? You know, in 5 years' time, if we took $91,000 and set it aside for 5 years, we could build a $500,000 building that would have state-of-the-art, HVAC and everything else, and it would have space that would be usable for other things like theater groups. I personally think it's great to have a theater group. I don't think that that space lends itself well to that, because there's no place for people to change. You know, there's no staging and behind the scenes and that type of thing. It's not designed for that purpose. Do you know what I mean? Like, could we take this money and use it in a different way to have a theater, still a municipally owned theater, but not in that particular building?
Let me refocus the discussion here. We're getting way off track. So, what's your suggestion? What do you want to do about account 2515? Because we're talking about budget. If you want to pass it, we'll vote on it. If you don't want to pass it, we'll vote on it. If there are changes you decide we need to make to it, you've got to be more specific.
I think that the costs of running the theater need to be got under control, and whether that means it's only open 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week, I don't know. But I think those are all questions that should have been addressed way before we get to the fact that it costs us $100. And this is like ballooning cost. Where's last year?
I'm going to ask you to focus. What do you want to have done? What do you want? I don't know. I don't know how to pursue with this, because we can't let this spin and spin and spin, because I think we all have heard and all agree and all have our opinions. But what do we do about this? This is on a plate right now.
Okay. I would like to hear more opinions. You and I have talked a lot. We haven't heard anything from other people. So I would like to hear more opinions before we actually vote on this.
Please.
I realize that this is a cost and a half. I get it, okay? But I think, and again, Tim Nichols doesn't have a crystal ball here. But I think that in time, if we can support this theater within 5 to 6 years from now, this could very well be a performing arts center with federal monies tied to it and grants tied to it that could really make a big difference. But part of that is where it is and who owns it and where it's sitting. Now, I know that building needs a lot. I've been in there. I know exactly what it needs. But I think that, and I realize it cannot get double this in 3 years. I realize that. Otherwise, you really have to have that discussion. But I think that if we can finance this year, we let the theater committee do their job, we let them come in and do this, I think within 5 to 6 years, we could very well be in a place where it would actually be turning a decent profit, because it would become more than what it is, and it would also become grant / eligible for through different things in different organizations, especially a performing arts center. Should that take place, that would have some federal, I don't know if it had federal, but it would have endowment money coming in. Am I right, Catherine?
Endowment.
Yeah.
If that did take place.
And there's a good, they have them, they have one in Orono. It can happen, but a lot of it is where it is. And I know that's a tough sell, and I realize how I voted on the library, and I can defend that if I need to. And I just think, and that's why I asked that, I don't want to get off on that tangent. But I think we should support it. I think we should try and see if it's let's see what happens this next year. Let's try to keep the cost down, and let's see if we can keep it, because a lot of people, when I mentioned the fact that it's getting people balk, they want it open, the ones I talk to. And it's not just right around my neighborhood, it's a lot of people. I know people that come from Waterville, they come from Herman, and come down here because they like this theater. Now, and again, Donna has no control of this. It all depends too on what Hollywood's putting out there, as you well know. You have banner years and you have years where it's really bad. And that's another thing that makes this budget very difficult. But I think that the theater committee, I think we should approve it. The theater committee should go back and talk about maybe, like you said, Mr. Mayor, maybe looking at some issues of cutting down costs. What else can we do? And let's see what happens. It's not an unobtainable cost yet. If it gets to be unattainable, You know, I mean, you can do the argument that you're gonna prop up the stagecoach company for the next 20 years when the car's here. But I think that if it's done correctly, it can turn a profit in the not too distant future.
Your analogy is spot on. Doc, you had something?
Yeah, I think, I agree with Tim on a lot of points. However, you know, we don't know the implications on what, you know, $145,000 is going to be, you know, whether we vote on this or not, on the tax rate to begin with. Secondarily, I think that if we're looking for endowments and we're looking to show organizations out there that we really are meaningful about maintaining a theater and/or performing arts center / community center, whatever, I think we have an obligation to constrain the costs as much as possible. And if that means prioritizing certain days of the week, you know, that we show movies or we don't, okay? I think that be a very positive argument. Folks out there are trying to do our best, and at the same time has to change the direction we go. From my perspective, and I don't know what we might, or what might be better or not, but in the past 3 years, and during that time, I mean, this is an 11%, I think about a 5 or 6% at the very least, and the year before it was that much. And that we've had, and I've watched there's a steady decrease, and even if you numbers, and it's difficult, but there's 2015 to in what the I think if we prioritize that, if we can maintain the budget or flat from last and say this is the budget, what you can and then go out there, organizations, this create a and go after grants over the next several years. Money, but we show what we really need. So,
my take on it, interesting points about thinking before drastically cut so that to money to like. I think that's kind of with off get really creative. I mean I don't know what it is. I do support the. I think that it's going to be more of a performing arts. Probably, I think the stage is really set up to be like the performing arts to be. It would be, and I don't see it as a huge problem here because we lose money in a lot of choose to lose money on. Right? Thing with the other library's budget, I don't care about 700. In essence, it's just that we were using to get the argument on everything. So, but if I had to, I would vote pass it the way that it is, but I would vote to really push the theater committee to really think creatively, about some way that they can save large chunk of money to start saving it up so that we can, and I don't know, we can do that, right? Yeah, we can do that through that capital savings and stuff, so we could.
There is no way.
Yeah.
There is no way.
Yeah.
There is no way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're having fundraisers,
Yeah.
and granted, you know, it brings in 300, 200, but every little bit helps. We're trying to bring in money to help work on the theater and get things done that need to be done. There's a lot that needs to be done, and the fundraisers aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, I'm not thinking fundraiser-ish.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we are making an attempt.
Yep.
I don't know what could be cut,
Yep.
cost cut or whatever. I don't know what
Yeah.
that could be done when there's so much that needs to be done.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, I guess that's something for the. I mean, how much? I don't know. Would $150,000 be enough to do a lot of repairs to the building and get it turned around, or no? I know you probably that's a lot to ask you, but.
You mean beyond the budget? Or just increasing the budget to 150?
No. I mean, if you could. My main point is, Heather, I like your idea of doing something to, like, whether it's I don't know what it is because I don't even want to say it, but it would be something that'd be drastic, you know, like closing half the year, you know, so that we can save up, so we can take $75,000. I'm not saying it's going to save $75,000 to close it, but if closing it half of the year could save us $75,000, and we do that for 4 years or something like that, and then we can change it into like and fix it all up and like have it be. I mean, I'm not sure that's the solution, you know, but yeah.
It's sad that it is, you know, it's community owned, and a lot of the older people, like when we did the fundraisers,
Yep.
older people would come up to us and donate money and say, oh, I went to that theater when I was young, and we got to keep that theater going.
Yep.
We can't get it shut. You know, there are people that really want it open because of what it is, because of the things that have gone on there, even gone past there, like president, different stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it would be a shame to close it. I know that it does need a lot of work and everything, and we are trying to get
I know.
the other stuff in there, but we're doing what we can do.
Oh, I know. I mean, you can only have so many fundraisers and bake sales, and you know.
And there's other things like the golden ticket and different things
Yeah.
that they've made, like the dollar night, and I think there's date night. There's different things to help raise money. So we are trying to raise money for different things.
What they need is a capital raise. They need to have a major push out in the community to raise like they did with the library, even though it wouldn't be to that extent, because they have grants.
Yeah.
But they need a capital push out there to get the actual maintenance done as much as they can within reason. Once that's done, then if you wanted to turn it into a performing arts center, you'd have to look at what kind of space would you have backstage and that sort of thing. But the communities around here that use that need to understand that you've got to have some sort of a push to help out with the maintenance, to keep it going, some kind of fundraiser out in the community, like they did with the library, like they did with the swimming pool, get it done.
Can I interrupt here? We need to focus again. We all understand that, and I know the theater committee is on that. We're not saying anything you ladies haven't talked about ad nauseum numerous times. Bob, anything you want to add to the discussion on this?
Pittsfield has a few gyms. You got the school system, you got the parks, you got the Pinnacle, and the theater is one of those. And it may not be what draws people to town, but it's a part of what draws people to town. Even though they may not go every week, some people will use the theater. They're going to move to town, they're going to use the theater. But if they move to town, they're going to spend money elsewhere also. They're going to spend money at Shop and Save and at Dice Arts and wherever. So it's not just a matter of the theater bringing in money, but it brings money to town other ways. So we got to look at that also, I think. And I would be in support of this budget, like Caleb said, as it is now, with the thought that the theater committee look at some things to figure out how to save a little bit of money somewhere. I mean, we're not gonna save 91,000 obviously. If we save 10 or 15,000.
Well, I think a combination between limiting the hours to a certain degree and making it more of a destination, which you've already taken a step in. You know, with the Pittsfield Plays Out, is that what it's going to be called?
Yes, yes.
You know, so I mean, it's not an overnight thing. And personally, I think the budget should pass as is. And as I said, I'll give you an example. I'm going to exaggerate and make a point here. I don't use Manson Park. Why should my taxes go to support Manson Park? Get rid of it. I don't use it. I mean, it sounds like a silly argument, but you know, I exaggerate to make my point. You know, and as you know, as you said, I've said many times also, that's one of the assets this town has. And we make money at the recycling center. We're not set up for that intent. We have the recycling center because that's a service this town offers. It's more of a necessity than anything else. Police department, more of a necessity. Fire department, more of a necessity. Manson Park's not a necessity. Pinnacle's not a necessity. Having that boat launch is not a necessity. Theater's not a necessity. But it's what separates this town from every other town. It's what people come here for.
It's kind of like our library. My comments about the library weren't to like make it sound bad. I mean, my kids love the library. I love that Pittsfield has an awesome library, and I have no qualms with the fact that it costs $200,000. I mean, it costs money to have something nice like that, and you know.
Was there a question up in the audience? Someone have their hand up? No. Okay.
I make a statement.
Yeah, Ron.
I think I missed this in the discussion. What's the revenue? Like, what's the revenue of the theater? How much do we make selling tickets and concessions combined per year?
In 2018, the budget projected revenue was $54,257.
So 90 grand loss per se, if you're going to compare the cost to
So we made about $55,000 on the theater in 2018.
That was that was from the budget. That was the projected.
The revenue is 55. It's budgeted for 145. So that's where you're getting a 91,000 loss, considering it a profit center. But you can't consider it a profit center. I'm sorry, I've stepped over your comment.
No, it's okay. It seems to me that if we consider the theater a community service, which I think it is, I think it's been said many times, it's one of the gems of Pittsfield, it's one of the reasons that I chose to move my family to town. If we consider it a community service, is there any way we can, and this is going to move in the opposite direction, I think, of where the conversation was heading, so forgive me, but is there any way we can increase the budget to cover that difference and take that revenue money and put it into a capital improvement account? And then make a big push and say, we're trying to save the theater. Everybody that we talk to says we want to save the theater, but you got to come and spend money at the theater if you want to save it. Every dollar that you spend is going to go to improve this building. And the town is going to make a commitment for the next 5 years to cover that difference.
If we were here and our sole existence was that theater, it'd be an easy conversation. But that's one part of a very big pie we've been talking about for a couple months now.
That's an interesting
no one disagrees with what you're saying, Ron.
Yeah.
No one disagrees with anyone, you know, and your point, Heather, of you know, considering the facility itself, keep the theater, but just move somewhere else. It's like one will do. How come I never thought of that? Because I didn't. I mean, that's a viable option too in the future. But it's, you know, that's why the discussion about the wages is not going to be spread everywhere. I mean, it's
right.
We've got it's a difficult budget this year. Very difficult.
It's just.
Yeah, no, I did. Thank you for the idea. I mean, it makes sense. Steve, please.
All right, so the way I look at it right now is you have no choice but to pass the budget the way it is. And then you have everybody's given all their feedback and what it's gonna take and what it needs to change, and you have a theater committee.
Mm-hmm.
Task them with that, get through the budget, and look towards the future, but you're not gonna fix it here. You're not gonna fix it right now.
I guess someone like Heather, we could task the theater committee to report back, at a certain time and come up with some ideas. I guess.
I mean, that's actually
Thank you for
something every
volunteering me for
department.
that.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean that was kind of like what you were. Like you were the one that kind of like mounted this conversation off. I guess. Not that I'm volunteering you for that because I'm not. But
The way it's set up, Caleb, every department head has a budget, and they're all tasked, every single one of them. Here's your budget. Don't go over, but we're going to ask you every day, do less. You do that, and you do that, Dawn. Everyone here. I mean, Chief does that. We all do that.
Yeah.
So that's an unspoken thing. We don't have to tell them, this year you have to make sure you do it. Oh, well, I didn't know that last year. You didn't tell me.
Yep. Yeah, but we can tell them something like what Howie is saying. Like every year there's been a 5% increase, and we could yeah. I mean, I think that we can do more than what we've done for the past. Heather is saying she wants to do more than what we've done for the past 8-9 years, I think. Which is just sit here and say, yeah, it's a big loss, and I'm sorry, but let's just keep going. I mean,
That's what I have the biggest problem with, is everybody just accepts the fact that we're going to spend $91,000 for
so there's some
maintain
step
the
in
status
between.
quo.
Well,
there's some step in between changing it tonight because we can't, and then creating
to move it along, that discussion should be done between now and the next budget session.
Absolutely.
No,
That's
I
something, and I would task you counselors.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to be here once a meeting. Take one meeting a month. Take half an hour out of that, talk about the theater. Or ask Dawn to come up. What did we come up with? What can we do? What's up? Your long-term plan. A 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan.
I agree, but that's what we could do tonight. Is if you want to do something like that, then we could set that ball into motion. And then,
that's not what we can do tonight. We're not talking about that tonight.
Yeah, but this is our chance to talk about it.
We're not going to set an edict to the theater committee tonight.
No,
we're talking about budget.
I know, but this is our chance to. This is where we get together every year and talk about the theater, talk about everything. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think we're saying the same thing, but we're not. Or something.
Yeah, I believe we are. All right. Anything else? Okay. Let's vote on account 25-50. 66. All in favor? All those against? Opposed? Heather?
Reservation.
Doc?
Nay.
Tim?
Aye.
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
I vote aye. 4-2 passes as listed. Move on, please.
Yes. Next budget is Community Services, Social Services. This is on page 35. Book, and comes in at $10,393, a 0% increase. And this is comprised of a few items are community and social services. The Community Christmas Project at $5,300. This is the food bank, basically. The Egg Festival at $1,000. The Historical Society at $2,000. Senior Citizens at $1,000. And the Snowmobile Club, which seems like it shouldn't be in there, but is simply because it is a pass-through of $1,093 is the best estimate of what the fees will be that the town receives, which is in the revenue fund.
Okay, very good. Any questions, comments? Anyone in the audience? Councilors, any questions or comments on this? Very well. Yes.
One thing, Community Christmas Project, I realize that we budget that for $5,300, and hopefully things will improve. Oil prices are starting to come down, some other things, but if there is no improvement by next year at this time, I think we may need to revisit that, Catherine.
So we increased that a number of years ago.
Yeah. So it may be coming up time again to do it again, maybe next year, depending on the economy.
For the next budget.
Yeah, depending on the economy. Just something to keep in the back of my brain.
Well, given the last 9 years, it's not been a roller coaster at all. And I think I recall this discussion. We're probably the same reason, the costs of the fuel and heat and all that.
The So this is the food pantry,
Yeah.
Yes.
and they also do fuel assistance?
No.
No,
out of that?
no.
So what is the cost of, are you just saying
Maintaining
cost of
the-
fuel because more people would be using the food pantry?
Right.
If it's,
That's what I'm getting at. You know, if next year at this time, what I'm saying is if the economy tanks and you got more people looking for assistance, you may have to bump that up. Now, hopefully, the economy is starting to rebound and, you know, maybe things will get a little easier and it won't be as bad as it was this last year. But if it is, we probably ought to look at that again.
Okay, that's for
That's
next
for
year's.
another discussion.
Yeah, for next year's budget, okay.
do we have any idea of numbers of people that are served by the food pantry and how that's changed over, because we're giving them the same amount of money for the last 5 years.
It goes up and
Do
down.
we,
I work at the pantry.
okay,
It goes up and down.
seasonally or just from year to year, or?
Sometimes seasonally, because in the summer they have their gardens and things such as that. And then, like you said, in the winter, thinking about fuel and things like that. So it kind of, you know, roll. But we I don't know a number.
Do they keep people come through, or?
I don't know.
Catherine, can we?
Yes. Yes, I know they have them.
That would be really valuable to know, you know, when we're about, you know, truly is a community service,
To see
if it's sufficient.
if there's enough
Obviously, if there's, it's not. You know, this is somebody that spends seeing people. It's community service to be. It actually.
One point. There's no money at that. Council.
Before we pass the funds, Catherine, before.
You can that you want.
Okay. That's somewhere to go back.
For the next meeting?
No, that's.
Okay.
You get numbers
You-
back and
you'll-
it's something that.
Yeah. Okay, she's got a note. Set. Anything else, council? Vote on, total of 10. Signify by saying aye. Against? Community social services, 05 pass.
All right, the next. So the additional had sent out to, and then what I will go through the record, and then I'll give you some. So basically, in that on session, additionals, and they were very thorough. And so the top sheet that you have is additions, and these are requests by requested. And so different items. Budget, so we can compare it to the budget as best as possible. Committee went side, we have the assistant previously from the economic development with the staffing the council save up over funded person assistant. I did decrease and so they did approve that. They approved the supplemental salary for all of the realized HRGA responsibilities to bring an individual up to the appropriate level, because we had found 2 positions that were not at the MMA salary survey level after the adjustment of the cafe.
So, a quick question for, have these been requests that we've already discussed?
You have not, but the finance committee.
Okay, very well, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll zip through
Yeah,
this
okay, yeah,
very
very well.
quickly, and then we'll look at where we're at. So Public Works, we got the full-time laborer, maintenance, custodian. So that one was the one that would focus on the library, town office, theater, to assist us with custodian work and the maintenance items on a chart managed by the Public Works Department. And then, because we took over the snow plowing, it's too much for 4 people. We've got to add on another laborer, equipment operator, truck driver. So that was approved. And these are the entire personnel costs with all of the benefits costs and the all costs involved. So number 3, transfer station. That one you had already discussed because it popped up. But we did go through and we had an individual who just was, when we made all the adjustments, it's pretty clear that the pay was not reasonably appropriate. So I went through with the average, and we recognized health and safety officer items. And then for the police, administrative assistant, and that's for the staffing agency, but if we can find somebody through regular advertising, that's fine too, and then they'll get benefits instead of the staffing agency giving the money for overhead. So that one definitely was needed. And then the SRO pre-K salary and benefits, that is the temporary position that we have now, the part that we started with the school pay. So there's a revenue on the other side. The SRO detective salary benefits, that was a no, because that's something that, if that did come to pass, with later on in the school year, MCI was interested, that was something that could be looked at and started up again, just as with the model that we have now with the special revenues. The captain position, that was approved after considerable debate for $5,000, not $20,000, to match it up and fit it in with the other wages. The Police Explorer program, I wanted to put this in the budget, but it truly was different, so we didn't have to do it as an additional. So that was approved. So the total of all the additional request budget original, the recommendation was a little bit less at 303,864 of those original requests. And then on the second page, during the discussion, new items came up. So I put them on a separate page and sent those out separately to you. So you have, the first one is a wash, but is on here because it was a recommendation, that the income from the cable franchise fee be used for economic and community development items. So it would be used, but it would be on the revenue side of the budget. It would not be added into development because we grossed our budgets, not net them. On that unclassified revenues, development, in development, hot change in the bottom line. The issue with the reserve to how to deal with animal control, which ultimately could cover added in there. Control position is everything added in. ACO services, we would delete these. However, there was a comment made that have somebody on call that the person wasn't working, so you actually pay somebody. But the new recommendations from the 51,000. The total 3,800 because I had to use it likely And so those are, and later on I'll tell you the capital quickly. So on the capital budget, actually a budget and the capital affect that. Funded by tax says capital improvement from your budget. We basically, the telephone, I think that there's a cure for in the first year. The floors and the move, the generator, washing, sealing, repointing the building, back entrances, pointed out, the cruiser video grant match, we do need to build, which indicates multi-steps, which is what we, but now it's, and so we cut 5,000 budget for the library capital does probably will be okay. 67 down from 7, so that helps a lot of pluses, so get there's more, you can't do every report, and then listed separate for the roof part of the building, which definitely is needed. No money in, we will do replace the 19 and perhaps used vehicle that the state surplus. Lucky if you, but it is the Pinto trailer to haul it to the debt service. So the project needs, this is going to be interesting for this year. It's a major, there's extensive work, pad, related pads to do it, because we'll it's a requirement. Expensive. To look at what would a contract, would it be more or less? I think it'll be expensive, but we can look at that. And for the pavings, we couldn't do both pavings, so we said yes to, the Finance Committee said yes to 500,000, but it would be a combination of different types of paving, overlay, and then the base paving with some surface. Garage roof for the Public Works, out, no. Hopefully it can be painted somehow to keep it going. Transfer station, the compactor, that needs to be taken care of. That's a safety health issue and probably regulation at some point here. It's not totally bad, but it needs to be taken care of in 2019. The Little League field, although it needs to be done, that was taken out. So we went down from 2.1 million to 706,000, so that was good. Going on to Part C, this is all funded by revenues that we have now. So we have monies for the back walkway, which the town had designated through the town council a ways back, and we got to get to it this year. Then we got cemetery more. The cemetery is one of the items in the trust funds that actually has a lot of money, but the money can only be used for the cemeteries. And so we need to allocate those out. We have been using that for mowers for a number of years. And the vertical baler replacement, we would utilize funds in the reserve account to go toward that because that does need to be done. All right, so those have money from other sources. And then the theater revitalization components, that was not put in for a loan. And we didn't discuss it, and it's not funded. On the next page are the water sewer items, and we passed over those because they require rate increases, and that will be discussed in the future as we discuss whether we're going to do that. And we probably will look at that as a study, professionally done. We can do sewer, but the water does need to be done by a neutral party. The next part, E, is the combined purchases, water, sewer, public works. And so the excavator, as Scott had put that in the budget, is in the 2019 debt service estimate. The GIS locating, 7 mapping, etc. system, that is in the 2019 budget, but I've switched that over. That's all in water sewer because I could not do our ordinance and had it broken up like that. And part G we don't need to go through because these parts are only done if we have the money, and we do have the money for some of them. We're trying to keep the airport hangar on the capital list, and it appears FAA, MDOT definitely will approve a project. It's the FAA that wants the whole project looked at, and it's very important, not only for the airport here to go forward with the hangar project. The FAA contacted me. I didn't even mention this to Kayla because I haven't responded yet. The several hundred emails that have come in the last couple of days. But FAA has contacted the town and said, look, why don't you just bond the whole thing, and then we'll have all of your allocations and you'll get money in the future to get paid back from the FAA. So I haven't responded to that because we would never do that. But we're going to work on that in the future here. So these are what the Finance Committee came up with, which then lowered the overall impact in some ways and expanded it in others. So taking the current situation, let's see, nothing would impact it tonight. All right, so taking the current situation with the pluses and minuses and not going through the whole thing, doing the Finance Committee's recommendations for capitals, which reduces things, but additionals, which increases it, and everything that's taken place, we have an increase in the overall bottom line budget of $586,493. So that's a large increase here. And that increase from last year is 18.2%. So looking at the revenues, we will have the revenue from the SRO officer, which is 42 weeks of the 52 weeks with the additional expenses there. So that's a revenue source. And then in the cemetery budget, I had increased the cemetery revenues, thinking that we would probably increase the amount that we could use from the cemetery general. And the committee decided that we would just, and we have to put this on a vote for the council, but we would just pay for the cemetery budget for the next few years out of the cemetery trust fund, and we can discuss that more at the next meeting because we do have sufficient funds to do that for a while. So that ends up being from last year a 4.2% increase. And so then, and that's just the budget, that's not these capitals being funded otherwise, maybe, as an example. That would be, if a mill is 200,000 and all things stay the same, which means the valuation of the town would be the same, and we won't know what it will be till next summer, June. We would have 2.55 mil increase if a mill was 200,000. If a mill was 250,000, we would be at 2.04 mils higher, so that would be a 2 mil increase. And if a mill, like it used to be 300,000 until the state changed the formulas with the homestead, which made everything change in the Betty and better for the personal property, it would be 1.7 mils higher. So that's about where you're at right now. And we won't know what a mill is until the commitment is done next year during the summer, and that is due to several items, but mostly the homestead to a small extent, but mostly the personal property and how it goes up and down so much because of what the companies have on April 1st declared here. So that's where we're at now.
Can you, I don't mean to interrupt if you have a
No,
morning
no, that's okay.
presentation.
That's
I
fine.
just want to make sure this is palatable to everybody. That mill rate compared to the town per 200,000, that makes sense, but, you know, our constituents, the taxpayers need to know. Let's say if you have a tax bill of $1,000, what's the ballpark increase for that? I know the mill rate has to be set during the summer, all things being considered. But if we were to take that 2.55 mill rate against, let's say, what would no increase, $1,000.
So if you had $1,
So what is our
rate is 21.
So take $1,000 and add that.
I can go through charts.
No, I just want a ballpark. $100, are they double? It's ballpark because every one of us.
Yeah, no,
Sure, we're using the same number.
that's why I'll make you a
If you just tell us the number or that we can use in our discussion, the rubber's gonna hit the road right there. Care about this, what's it gonna cost me this time next year?
average, and
Okay.
no, that's fine.
Okay.
If we, it would be easy, but wide variety. We've got, I've used the future money, and I had to, we've got now. I did go through some examples, and I was really more interested in our budget. We're more $50,000 be a low section of that would mean future monies $5 million. It's around 71,000 low. Left at the end of we would be spending with rates that go from 2.2 to 3.8, which is the way the Maine Municipal Bond Bank is set up. And they said that these are pretty much what they're running now. With your $71,000 payment, which becomes less over time, going down to $51,000, you will have spent of the Pittsfield's future money $953,234, leaving $629,657. An alternative to this is if you added that $71,000 to the budget, then you would be adding to the mill increase. So right now it's off being funded for the second items on your capital sheet.
Can you provide clarification on that? You're saying to finance that entire 500 and something increase with that, out of that 1.5 million?
No, it's actually, what the information I gave you before is what happens with the budget with all those additionals and a few negatives. And a few revenues.
No, I understand that, but you're saying using that Pittsfield's future money as payment for these increases, so we keep our tax rate even.
No, that's for the other capitals that are here, that are on Part B. So Part A is taken care of in your capital budget with all these other increases that you got with your additionals, and that's what your tax rate increase of 2.5.
Okay, but I don't understand why are you
Because these are all the items, we were told to bring in everything that the
No,
departments needed.
no, I understand that, I understand. Let me try to ask my question so that I can understand it. So, these sections, A through G, bottom line, what the finance committee had done, which you folks did an awesome job. Thank you very much. You see why I didn't volunteer for it again. We're looking at a 500 and something thousand increase to
So,
the taxes? Is that?
that part is with the additionals and the capitals that are in the budget funded by taxation. So that's part A on this capital improvement budget or capital improvement plan. So part A is included with that tax increase, all those additionals, and then some deletions because we have some additional revenues. Part B, which still is the loan bonds part, when you talked about using the monies, and people had different ideas, using the monies, well, some people wanted to use the monies, and then some people didn't want to.
Okay.
And some people wanted to use it as a...
Okay, now I want to talk about the options. I want to talk about exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Part B, you're saying $706,000.
Yes.
Why are you talking about getting a bond from the main bond if you plan on taking that money out of Pittsfield's use, why don't we just pay for it?
You can just use it.
Well, why were you talking about having the main bond involved, going to take 15 years to pay it off? That was right over my head.
Because you'll be able to get more for your money if you just use the Pittsfield's future monies, which you can do, and that was...
Right, but you said the total payment when it's all said and done at 15 years is going to be over $900,000.
That would be correct. But
So we're going to have to pay $200,000 to finance this?
it's an option.
If we left the other money in the bank?
It was an option that was discussed. You can either, well, you can first add a payment for a debt service, if you wanted these items still, to the actual budget as a debt service payment. You can get a bond from the bond bank or someplace else and make payments over a lesser period of time if you'd like, or you can just simply take the money out of the Pittsfield's future funds and just buy stuff
Catherine,
as you want.
I think what Mike's asking is why we would want to get a bond and then make payments on it instead. And I think one of the things we talked about, correct me if I'm wrong, was that the interest that we're getting on the monies, if we left it in, because you would only be taking $71,000 out each year to make your payments, and that would leave a larger chunk of money in for interest than it would the interest we would be paying on the bond.
That 71,000, that's still more than what that money earns in interest though, right? Is that correct? Wasn't that interest you say like 30,000
Right, the
or
70,
something?
that's not just using the interest, but instead of, if you take the whole $706,000 out and just pay for everything in 1 year, then that money is not earning interest in the bank anymore. And the interest that we're getting is more than the bond bank, correct?
In some years, yes, in some years, no.
Right, so
Because
that was
they
something
offer
you were going to look at, you were going to call them and find out about what would work
So you're
better.
saying there's a possibility we can use our money to spend over 15 years, X amount of years, and not cost as much as if we just financed it outright? Is that what you're talking about?
It depends all on the interest rates,
Yeah.
but you get more bang for your buck and you can do more if you went.
Well, that's essentially what I'm saying. It's not going to cost as much, which means, it translates to that you're going to get more for your dollar.
In the end, yes.
But
now, what you could do is you could leave this as a sort of either or. You can bond against the Pittsfield Future Fund, and I can figure out what type of motion we can do for
that's
that.
okay.
Then you could have some options.
Yep, well, that's okay. I mean, that option you threw out was just right out of left field, and I couldn't digest it, and if I'm the only one in the room that couldn't, then,
No, this is a complicated
the other thing is, so out of these two pages, parts A through G, the only direct impact we're having to our tax base is part A.
That would be correct if you leave it as is and use the Pittsfield's Future Fund for the...
Okay. So if we didn't consider part B, part A is the one that
calls for that 18% increase.
It adds to the increase, yes.
Okay, so
as well as-
that 18%, so when I was asking about that mill rate, that didn't take into account at all Part B.
Correct, yes, correct. So right now, you still probably have too many projects. It's been whittled down.
Why would you say too many projects?
Well, because you've got, large increases here.
Well,
You have whittled-
yeah,
you
I'm
have
still,
been whittled down a
that
lot.
discussion that we've all had, they're all necessary.
Oh, I know, everything's necessary.
It'll be used
Okay.
that Pittsfield Futures money to fund this project this year. That's going to leave 600,000 for next year, if you want to use it next year.
Right, if we took it out and paid it all in one lump sum.
No.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that is true. You'll still have your money, but if you get a bond, you would either keep using the Pittsfield's future money, or you would then put the bond payment
So we're using,
into the
we're
budget.
essentially using that as a collateral or
Yes,
leverage.
exactly, yes, yes.
Okay.
Which is a wonderful, there's a lot of options. It's a wonderful ability to have. Most towns don't have this.
So next for this section, what's our next step with this?
I think determine if you can live with the increase, or you would like it cut down more.
So there's nothing else you need to present for this part of it?
No.
What else do we have on the budget to do?
We've been through everything.
Okay, this is it. Okay. I'll entertain anything from the audience. Questions or comments? Councilors? Yeah.
I have a question. So the 706 didn't include the mill rate that you were talking about?
That was independent of it.
So
That's what I was trying to
That
clarify.
706 is gonna add more to the mill rate?
Well,
Depends on where we get the 706 from.
Right, depends on how we do this.
right.
Which is what's being debated now, because there's multiple ways. I had just used one way that people had brought up, trying to think of how can we not impact the tax rate, which we're impacting from these other items, and how can we use monies that we currently have, because people came to us and said, why is this money sitting in an account?
So that was my same concern.
With just the Part A then, it's looking at 2.5?
2.55 on mill rate.
Yeah, that's
Which is
part.
10%.
But 18% to the budget.
And that's that is a totally worst case scenario.
Well, that's Part A plus the front sheet.
Yes,
correct?
your other
It's
stuff.
not just the
Yes.
140,000.
Correct.
It's the 140,000
Right.
plus everything on the first and
360.
second sheet.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then the 706 could add another.
Right.
It could, depending
Well,
on
yeah.
how you do this, yes.
But that's why we were considering the option, and why a couple months ago I requested the council to consider starting to use that money for these types of things. If it's just to make payments to keep the tax rate the same, that's one discussion, or, the number of discussions we had on it. I mean, I don't think the question on whether these are needed or useful is even in the debate. It's how do we do this?
Yeah, the
And
problem
we're
is-
talking, the majority of this is infrastructure. I mean, Steve could talk ad nauseam about infrastructure, and Donnie could too. And I know the police department's been behind where they really need to be. Every department would do that. Heather, you had?
I did, but we're still in audience, so.
Okay. I'm sorry, you all set? I didn't mean to walk on you, I just
No,
wanted
no.
to clarification. Okay. Donnie?
So, just, your turn? No, go ahead. So just my viewpoint on it is once you use that money that you have, it's gone. Okay? You're not gonna get interest that you're getting now. And if you can use the interest potentially to offset it, okay? You're always gonna have it for the future, and maybe the interest will go up, I don't know what the future holds, but I think that's would be another alternative, that's just my opinion. But you can pay it right out, and you can hold it for a couple of years, but what's it gonna protect you in the future if you use it and you don't have it?
Well, the other option is that we don't touch it, and we take that 706,000 and throw it out the door.
Correct. That is another option, that's decisions you gotta make.
That's right.
I mean, we gotta do all we can do. We gotta try to
Well,
make it as affordable as we can.
Understood, and I agree with you. However, there are some things, they're not luxuries. There's no
There ain't no
luxury
luxury.
in here at all.
No.
They things that have to be done, and you know, it's not far from the literal truth that we're gonna have the buildings fall around our heads.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So I mean, the idea of, I'll bear with you, Donnie, I'm sorry, the idea of having that money as kind of collateral, if you will, we have it in the bank, 71,000 a year for 10, 15 years is a heck of a lot more palatable to everyone, me included. I
That's
don't,
my point.
you know, I don't make a ton of money.
That's my point.
Yeah, and we could potentially use the $35,000 that makes per year and put that against the $70,000 and make it a
Yeah.
and make
Well,
it
actually a little less, but yeah, it's a nice cushion. I mean, no town in the state has ever had our size. Here's $1.5 million. What are you gonna do with it? Who knows? Donnie, go ahead, please.
Just one thing I want to throw out there to you guys is now obviously I'm a taxpayer and I look at this stuff. We all have projects that we have put as department heads as priorities and stuff. But I think one of the things I want to throw out there as a reminder to you: how many percentage of people hold multiple years of taxes that aren't paid? And when you start talking about 3, 4, 5 mil increase, I don't think that's an option, because there's a percentage of taxes that don't get paid because the town's going to own a lot of property. Because there are people that still, as we look at that book, the annual reports, a lot of people, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that we can't collect on every year. We keep adding more money to it, there's going to be more hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's a personal property tax, though.
No, it's not, it's property tax.
It's both.
There's a lot of unpaid property taxes that go, and one of the things that I heard the other night at a thing is, I'm going to use your money, and I heard this at a town meeting, that this guy says, well, you can't foreclose on my property, put a property tax in, but every 3 years. So every 2 years or so, I'm going to use 2 years worth of my property money, and I'm not going to pay taxes. So I'm going to use the town's money, and I'm just going to, every 3 years, pay 1 year's worth of taxes. And I'm always going to have 2 years of taxes on the books. Well, that doesn't help us pay our bills. And one of the things I want you to hold true is I think that, again, once you got a big sum of money, that personally, that $700,000, is that the most important projects? And if it is, I think Steve's right. You take a loan out over multiple years to do that. But again, you're going to have these same people in here next year. They're going to be asking to spend the other $600,000, or take a loan out for $600,000 because there's things that are not getting funded. And you guys have a tough job to do. But I don't think breaking the bank. I do more with less in my budget. You look at my budget every year. I curb my spending. Yes, my infrastructure is going downhill. And $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of my money every year, operating money, has to go to cover everybody else. Because if they have emergencies, I understand it when it comes to your operating budget. But I use those funds of the towns for the transfer station like it's my money. And I'm very frivolous with that money, and I can make it go a long way. But there are other people that take, and the more you give them, the more you take. And this is, again, like Timmy said, we don't print money, we're not the federal government. So I think where you're headed is a good direction. But be very careful when it comes to the tax rate. There are people in this town that, if you look up and down the street, they're talking that are houses for sale, that are foreclosed. I want to be part of a member of this community. I do everything in this community. I'll do anything to help, and I'll stay here as long as possible. But there are some people hurting. I heard that the other night. I had people say that, oh, it's unheard of. Why do you need a new compact? Well, I can stick my hand through it. It's 25 years old. It's going to cave in, and it's going to be infrastructure. But again, everybody's got some good justification. The police chief, you've got Steve, and I think you've got some good projects. I think the finance committee did a good job, and I think that we are due for an increase in taxes a little bit. Just be very cautious. I hear a lot of people that are nervous. Very nervous.
Well, there's no one more nervous than what you're looking right up here.
Yeah, and you guys are too, because you guys carry the burden of the vote.
I mean, not only are we making decisions for all our constituents, I mean,
right, exactly.
I'm voting myself an increase. I don't want to have to pay more money.
Well, I like to hear that. It's not like
Taxes. I think everything's
self an increase. I like that.
Bob, go ahead, please.
I just want to say one thing, we're looking at a 2.5 mil increase. We're also going to be talking about raising water and sewer rates. I think we're going to have to really figure out how we're going to tell our constituents that, we're going to charge you another 10, 12% tax increase, but we're also going to raise your water sewer rates on top of that.
We may just want to have a public hearing at the gymnasium.
Might be a good idea. So I think we need to look at that also. And then have that in the back of our mind when we're setting this budget.
Well, you can't do everything at once.
No, I understand.
Well,
It's still something we're gonna talk about and.
No, understood. We're you know, as I said before, the finance committee did a heck of a job.
I didn't think we were ever gonna leave.
And it was, you know, it's one of the least desirable things to have to do,
Well, everything's thrown in, it's huge.
especially with this council. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Councilors? Yeah, Tim.
So you're talking about taking out a bond on Part B.
Yeah.
What would be like a 15-year bond?
Yeah, or whatever we think is the best thing to do.
You talk about an average of about a 2.5 mil increase
At the most.
at the most, and then you're talking about up in the water and sewer rates. Now, that one is a tough sell, except for the fact that we got everything in front of us, and that there's just no way that we're gonna get out of that unless, and get them sewer projects and different things done. But I think if we go to that extreme and take it out, I think that's a good move in the long end, and that way we don't deplete the money. And at the same exact time, I think that's just about all we can do. I don't think anybody's gonna swallow any more than that. I think they're gonna have a revolt on your hands, and it's gonna be tough as it is. But this stuff, some of this stuff is just, it'd also be tough, the roof caved in. And, you know, and things of that nature. So I can sell some of that, but I think that's about as far as you're gonna get right there. I'm willing to put a yes vote to what we've got so far, what we've talked about.
Yeah, there's nothing on here that's frivolous.
No,
Nothing.
but I wouldn't go any further, Mr. Mayor. I don't think we can.
Understood.
So what I will do is go through all the revenues again, go through all the projections. I can go through the budgets and see if there is monies in some accounts in the current budgets that were proposed to see if anything could be cut. I'll go through the whole thing, make up some charts for you.
Yeah.
Different scenarios.
I would probably vote against spending, unless I can somehow be convinced, which I don't know, but I would vote against spending $700,000 out of our Pittsfield's future money. What I would vote towards is potentially borrowing money from that and then paying it back towards it. I think would be a lot smarter idea.
I guess that's in essence what we're thinking of doing anyway.
Where we're heading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or and maybe try to use some of the I mean, I guess we're on the same page.
So we need to cut that mill rate increase down somehow. I'll go through the whole thing now that we've been through everything.
I think it's a pretty big mill increase.
It is.
Heather, please get something.
Yeah, it's definitely a big increase, but it's been many, many, many years since there was an increase. So point out something here that we talked about a lot at the Finance Committee meeting. Part B, underfunded by loans and bonds, the $706,000 that we're talking about. $500,000 of that is paving, which is the number one thing that everyone has complained to everybody about. So, and that's only half of the paving that Steve laid out to get us back on a track of actually maintaining, trying to catch up for maintaining
Oh,
the
we're way
roads.
behind.
So we're way behind, but this doesn't even, this $500,000 doesn't even begin to catch us up. It's half of what we needed to do.
No,
So
we're still gonna have unhappy people when
that-
project that have 500,000 spent.
right. So as an, I don't know how it works all out with the math and stuff, but some of these things are relatively small compared to that. And what if we actually paid for outright the other items and then only did the loan for the bond or the borrowing from ourselves, paying ourselves back for the paving? Because the problem is that this is $706,000 this year, and most of these things are one-time things for now, except for the paving. The paving needs to be done every single year in order to start
that was
catching
extended
up.
for 10 years anyway.
So,
yeah.
So once we use, once we use that money for this 1 year allocation of things, Next year, we need to plan on having another $500,000 that we borrow from somewhere in order to pave again next year. And then the year after that, and the year after that. So this doesn't really begin to address that issue. It's the best we could do under this, but it really only helps us out for 1 year.
Yeah,
correct.
It's not really moving us forward on that paving plan that we need to have. So that's my big concern with doing that and using the Pittsfield Futures money for that, is because it is kind of like a one-shot deal, you know. Or you could do all of this 1 year paving. You do pave in 1 year and spend $1 million.
Oh, many.
You know, but that only gets you 1 year of paving, and that's only what, 5 miles.
We can get you 2 years of bang for your buck.
Right. So I don't know if that's the best way to go either. But I don't know what it would do if we added the $206,000 to the budget for the year this year. So those small items are all paid off in 1 year and done with, and then we just have a recurring $500,000. You know what I mean? Because it's going to take us 10 years to pay off that $500,000.
One thing you gotta remember, if you look on Part A, that's one section of the tax increase, but that's a one-time cost, $140,000.
Right.
None of that will have to be bought again. We're talking a one-time cost. So it's 140 grand you can take right off after budget 2019.
The video system's in for next year also, to have 2 sections of it. And we'll need to do the airport grant again next year to have the full 90.
There'll be other items that will need to be addressed.
Right, okay, it's not gonna be $140,067.
No.
A lot of this, the majority of this is non-reoccurring. And this is a good chunk of the tax increase that we're discussing now.
Right.
We do have the cruise.
So it's not gonna be hit as hard.
We're not covering for 600,000.
So, I mean, there's no good way to go about it. I mean, the town needs to start spending money on the infrastructure, and we need to start spending money on our buildings and our equipment so that we can actually provide services to people. You know, we need to have the building maintained. We need to have equipment on the road and at the transfer station to provide those services to people. The other thing too, as far as the water and the sewer rates go and everything, you know, people only really think about their water and sewer rates when they get their bill and they have to pay their bill, but you know, they should be thinking about it every time they turn the tap on and every time they flush the toilet, for crying out loud. I mean, nobody really thinks of it until it doesn't work. And then it's like, well, why aren't my pipes fixed? And why isn't the water clean? And why do you have to boil water again? And why do we have all these breaks? It's because we're not paying for it as we go. And that, it hurts, you know, and to do both at the same time, it hurts. But to say, we're going to put off the water and sewer rate increase because we don't want to do it at the same time, there's never going to be a good time to do it. Because chances are next year, our budget is going to look very similar to this. Because there's so many items that need to be addressed. I'm not saying a 2.5% or 2.5 mil increase every year, that's ridiculous. But there does at some point have to be a jump in the mill. And
Well, this may be the one.
We've had tax increases, right?
Yes, you've had tax increases.
So, Heather.
Don't feel bad, Heather, because you guys started, I mean, what did we all put in over? We put, how was it, $5 or $6 million worth of requests, and I think $700,000. Don't get me wrong. It's a start. You guys are starting something. Don't be misrepresented by what I say. And again, we have been spoiled, 10, 12, 15 years with no tax increase. If we'd have done 50 cents this year, next year done 50 cents the year after, nobody even noticed it.
If we had done a gradual increase over that 15-year span.
See, but this is.
So we're catching up what should have been done all along. So it's not, it's going to be hard to just, it's like pulling off a Band-Aid a little bit at a time.
I'll make a chart.
You wait to the end, you can haul it up. Yeah, look. Can we do that? The other thing I want to
Because
put
I
in
think we've
there.
had tax increases.
Oh yeah.
You guys are saying we haven't been.
Minimal.
Most of it's caused by county.
Huh?
A lot of it's caused by county and
Or the
the
school.
education.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not talking about
No,
this. I'm
nothing,
just talking
nothing
about the
to
town
this
share.
impact.
Yeah.
Nothing like this.
Oh, nothing like this, but we've had 5%, 3%. Just to the
Yeah.
town
2 and then
share.
a
Yeah.
4.
Just to the town share. I know the hard part is going to be when you get the public in here. We've had huge tax increases because of the school, because of the county, because of and they're gonna.
what's
Everybody that
our
I've talked to,
meeting
nobody's
for
really
this?
doesn't understand how to separate that. Really,
What are we trying to get out of this?
I mean,
So
they don't. I mean, it looks like they're paying at the Pittsfields,
I'll
right?
look at all
I
the
mean,
expenditures.
Right,
I will do
sometimes
some
it's
different-
a slow
Yeah.
this year, but you guys are doing, you guys
What
are
is this
showing
mean supposed to
Yeah,
accomplish?
yeah, yeah.
If we don't agree with it, we
Yeah.
move
If
on.
we could have been, like you said, 30 years, as aggressive every single
We've been
year,
doing it all along.
small
So this is
percentage
gonna be the
increase,
same thing?
do as much as you can.
When we
you
go to the
wouldn't be
public
where you're
hearing,
at
I'll
today.
make up the ordinance for you that
But
has the
everybody's
figures
trying
for this.
to
So we need to identify what we're
ease
looking
and
for.
keep it in the pocket, do as little as they can.
Let me,
You're in the room.
Let me interrupt here. One thing that we're looking to do out of this meeting is to identify what's palatable for here. All the input that the finance committee has done, all the input that the council has done, Catherine, you and all the input we got from all the town departments. What I would like to see, I know you had that one suggestion of financing that $706,000 through a bond, but using our Pittsfield Futures money as collateral.
I'll run different scenarios.
Yeah, and Heather had the option
I'll
of
run
listening.
that one.
Fine, yeah. So what I would suggest, we're not going to have, I don't believe, a resolution on what this is going to be tonight, because I think we have some very valid points, all of us. I think we're all leaning the same way. I mean, you have a very valid point. Yeah, that's 71,000, 15 years as a town, we do that, but let's get a bit more creative. Because, and as you said, Donnie, no one wants to take that golden goose and kill it and have one good meal and that's it. This would be one good meal. Be a really good meal, but it'd be just one. But it'd be just one. So what I would suggest, when's our next meeting?
It will be on December 18th.
We don't have a interim between them?
No.
Is that our last council meeting for the year?
Yes.
That's a public hearing.
And it's a public hearing.
And we have to pass the budget that night.
Yes.
Yeehaw. Bring your coffee.
So I'm up for suggestions.
Well, I mean, do we want to present this at the public hearing?
That's what I'm asking. I mean, we have other options. I mean, do we want to present it as this and discuss the financing of the bonds? I mean, does the financing of Section B need to be part of that?
It's going to have an impact, so we do need to discuss it as part of the ordinance. But even if you put it in at a larger amount, later on, you can bond less or borrow less.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is if we look at the tax increase for the first two sheets, sections Part A through G, and say, yep, that money looks good. We're going to do this by taxation. We're going to do that by loans and bonds and however it all falls out. Here's the money that we're going to present for a public hearing. Do we have to have how we're going to finance the loans and bonds in place before we present this?
Just in total, so now then I'll give you some.
Okay, but we
scenarios.
have the total, $706,000.
Correct, just in total.
Okay, so here's the scenario, correct me if I'm wrong, if we voted on this evening, we have no meeting, today's the 4th, next meeting is the 18th, 2 weeks from tonight. And that would be the public hearing, that would be where we as the council would present the town with a budget. And then that's where the discussions come into play, so we do not have to have it clarified to the nth degree on how the loans and bonds, just to say, okay, we're going to loan and bond by a certain function that we'll decide by resolution at a later date for this amount. So we can, for all intents and purposes, I don't think we disagree with the content, what is covered, what isn't covered, because the finance committee's gone through this ad nauseum. We can vote on this as presented, and then what has been the sticking point the last 45 minutes or so, or the item of discussion, is how those loans and bonds are going to be paid and affecting the Pittsfield Futures fund. Am I correct in that assessment?
I think people will have questions, so I'll have separate sheets for you.
We can provide clarification, but the big picture for the budget. Yes, Heather?
Can we have another meeting next week, figure it out, so that we have something coherent to present to the public?
I was
You know
gonna
what I
suggest
mean?
that too, Heather.
So that when people walk in, we can
On
say,
how the loans and
Here's-
bonds gonna be paid?
Yeah.
No,
I think just go over the whole
thing.
I'm thinking, I don't wanna know the mill rate.
Yeah, because have we
People are
like
gonna
said
have
that we want to
questions
have a
and-
2% or 2? I mean,
They're gonna be mad about that as it is.
2.55.
2.55. I mean, have we
So
said?
you want to set up a meeting for the 11th, next Tuesday?
I feel like if we're gonna present a budget, we should
Yep.
be prepared and be able to say, this is how we recommend we pay for it, and be able to explain
Can
that
we-
if people show up.
So I have no problem. I think it would be a bit more cohesive from our side presenting it.
Well, and I think we should have some backup plans too, because if like, I mean, I'm not sure I'm really comfortable about going in front of everybody and saying the 2.55% or 2.55 increase in the mill rate. I think that's going to go over quite excitingly. You know,
I don't know if that's the word I choose.
well, not excitingly, but I think that depending on what happens, we may have to
Somehow works.
You know, we may have to have Plan B set up. You know, whatever that is. You know.
Well, Plan B comes out of the result of the public hearing.
Yeah, okay.
That's where we come up with our Plan B. We set up our Plan A. That's our job.
Yeah.
We present it to the taxpayers and say, yep, you guys are great, or no, you had your head right up your posteriors, go back and do it again. That's when we work on our Plan
You
B.
can change items at night, you just haven't had to do that all these years. You used to do that before I came.
Catherine, if we set up a meeting for next Tuesday, will that give you enough time to work up something with Part B as that being financed?
I think I need to go through the whole budget, do all the revenues and everything, so no, I don't think I'll have everything together
You
for
know,
the
that was
11th.
what I was afraid of.
Right, which is what people were shaking their heads at.
Yeah.
I'll start working on it, and I'll work on it every day.
So when,
I think you have your information, I need to put it into a different source document for you.
Well,
Which
okay.
makes it clearer.
Okay, but my thought is, and Caleb, I'm going to disagree with you here for a moment.
That's fine.
I think we have the information we need to present. We've been through every single section.
Oh, hey, I'm not trying to get another meeting. It's Heather.
I just want all of it.
somehow you just made me very proud.
I guess it depends. So if Catherine says that she can't have all the information together before Tuesday, then that doesn't make any sense anyway. But if we can, I know you'll give us the
I'm
information
gonna
as soon as you
organize
have
it
it.
for
But
you and send it out and have you look at it.
Yeah.
It'll be available to anyone that wants it.
okay.
Well, I guess my point was, what, other than how these loans and bonds are gonna be done, what question is there still up for debate? We've gone through every section. We voted and passed on every section. And if there's something specific,
I think the heartburn comes when it's come right down to making the final decision on what you've already.
well, that,
Because we
I
voted-
understood, but that being said, Steve, that the point is, we've been through this. We've spent the last month and a half talking about every single line item. So what is there that I'm missing?
Mike, the big thing is we've been going through all this, all of us have, just judging whether we want to do a project or not based on what people are telling us and stuff like that. We haven't been able to hear Catherine say 2.55 increase. And that's the missing piece that we haven't had. We've just been like, oh yeah, the roof needs to be replaced. Oh yeah, like this.
Well, no, that 2.55 came from her doing those calculations. What I had asked for information was, how is that going to compare, let's say, for instance, a $1,000 tax bill from last year?
Which one I'm gonna send out to you tomorrow.
That's what, that 2.55, that's a real hard number based on what we've gone through for the last month and a half.
And that was the maximum, right?
Right.
From what we
As
had,
long
that was
as,
the
as long as
maximum.
our valuation stays the same,
Right.
it doesn't,
Right.
you know.
But
this
right
is-
now, based on what we know right now, that would be the maximum.
With what we
increase
discussed
of
right to
what
this
we've
last
got.
page, and that equates to 18%.
Less part B. Less part B.
Less Part B.
Right, because Part B's the loans and bonds don't affect, but that's.
Well, they do affect,
but
we may have to make a
Well,
payment.
yes,
Yeah.
understood. But for the big picture, for what we're looking at, for the mill rate and for the percentage increase,
Yeah.
but it's just like any other bond or loan that we get, it becomes a resolution that doesn't affect the tax base. It does to a certain point, because we can, Steve said, well, I need a dump truck, okay, we gotta get a $150,000 bond to get a dump truck. That doesn't mean that we rewrite the tax bills and send them out again.
No.
And
no.
then
But that's
that's the
because
same with
Catherine's
this.
putting, well, we would have to put in the budget to that service.
Right,
Yeah.
understood.
Yeah.
But the point is, everything that this town needs to operate for the year 2019, we've gone over every single one.
Yes.
We
But
voted on every single item.
Yes, and I agree with you. We've preliminarily voted on every single one. But my only point is, tonight we're finally getting the whole picture. So this is our chance to get the whole picture and say, can you swallow that whole seed? And if you can't swallow the whole seed, then can we make the seed smaller and try to swallow it? That's what I'm saying tonight. That's what tonight is really about.
Well, every section, let's say recreation, theater, highway department, police department, we've gone through every line item. Every account number we've gone through and voted on every single section. The part that came up tonight was this. This has been already digested by the finance committee.
Yep.
This is the finance committee's suggestion that they said to the council, we feel comfortable, this is what we need to do. So I guess what I'm hearing is that to go any further, you may want to reconsider this and start negotiating this.
Well,
It could be anything in the budget.
it could be anything. So my purpose is, the whole point of this right now, before the public hearing, is for us to decide whether we want to go to the public hearing on the 18th and say we want to have a 2.55 mil increase, roughly.
Correct.
Do we want to do that? That's the question.
We voted for the last 6 meetings on
No, we
that.
didn't.
And
We
every section we've approved, Caleb, every section. This is the last one that we haven't voted on.
Yeah, Mike, I do agree. We voted on liking all these different projects